Dragon Ball Super Exposure. I am a Super Saiyan. Chapter 1-20. Chapter 1 _ Start Sign in Super Saiyan Bloodline. Welcome to Dragon Ball World. Open the Saiyan system. Open black lens bracket drop. Distributing newbie gift packs now. Close black lens bracket. In his mind, the mechanical sound sounded, making the sleeping Luya a little confused. Dragon Ball World. Saiyan system. Worthy. Passed by yourself. And also wearing Dragon Ball World. Have you awakened the system yourself? God. Is it so sudden? Although he also wants to travel, he is not ready yet. When I opened my eyes, I was greeted by a black cosmic starry sky. Is he wandering in the universe? Suddenly found something, Luya said in shock. I'm going. This spaceship is very familiar. Isn't this a space capsule that Saiyans sit in? Pinching his face hard, feeling the real pain, Luya completely believed it. I'm not dreaming, I really traveled through the Dragon Ball world. But how could he be in this space capsule? After a bit of doubt, Luya looked around, even himself. In the end, his face was a little weird. Because I was wearing a Saiyan-specific battle suit at this time, and there was a tail on my butt. He is a Saiyan. Nima. He not only crossed, but also became a Saiyan. Open black lens bracket drop. Prompt. The newcomer gift package has been distributed. Do you want to open it? Close black lens bracket. Suddenly, a mechanical voice prompted. Hearing this, Luya nodded immediately. Open. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Super Saiyan transformation skills. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for getting 100 million initial combat power points. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for getting an ape. The system's voice just fell. The next moment, a terrifying force burst out from Luya's body, and the next moment, the entire space capsule shook directly, and cracks continued to appear. Seeing this scene, Luya quickly put away his anger. Nima, he sent 100 million battle power at the beginning, he is simply a local tyrant. It made him a little embarrassed. System, am I now IG where the Saiyans are? Luya asked curiously. No, the host, the environment you are in now is already in the Dragon Ball Super stage. The system said lightly. Hearing this, Luya's face froze, and then his eyes widened. I'll go, you're not kidding, right? System. I'm not kidding, although the current host has a combat power of up to 100 million, but it is not the strongest. Many people are stronger than you, such as Sun Wukong, such as Vegeta, such as Luya. System. Host, the destination of the space capsule you are taking is the Earth. Hearing this, Luya was relieved. That's good. Otherwise, if you send yourself to an unknown planet, wouldn't that be a pain in the ass? Suddenly thinking of something, Luya asked, since it's already the plot of Dragon Ball Super, has the martial arts conference started? No, it's just the beginning. Now that Sun Wukong and Vegeta are not on Earth, they have already gone to the god of destruction Beerus to cultivate. Frowned, and then his eyelids jumped. Isn't that the part of Frieza's resurrection? System. Yes, Frieza was resurrected 3 hours later, and 4 months later when he invaded Earth. Then according to the time, Frieza's army has gone to steal the Dragon Ball now. I don't have time to rush to Earth to stop them. Thinking of this, Luya asked, is there any way to improve my combat effectiveness? To be honest, although 100 million combat power is very strong, it is only equivalent to the first stage of the super competition. Of course, this is the combat power in the Dragon Ball plot, and now Sun Wukong, who has not transformed, has been able to reach dozens of 100 million combat power, not to mention him who has been able to become Super Blue. And Frieza can also become Golden Frieza, and his combat power is still above the Super Blue. System said, yes, as long as the tasks assigned by this system are completed, the host will be rewarded. In addition, the host has the Super Saiyan transformation skill. Do you use it? Hearing this, Luya shook his head. I don't want to die here. If the Super Saiyan bloodline is activated, then this capsule will definitely not be able to withstand his power. He is not Frieza, he can survive even in outer space. Go to Earth first. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. 3 hours later, over the Earth, a spaceship was suddenly enveloped in flames, penetrated directly into the Earth's atmosphere, and fell down. Western capital. Boom. As the huge roar fell, in a valley in the western capital, a huge crater appeared with a diameter of 100 meters. In the center of the giant crater, a space capsule is embedded in the soil, and the surrounding is scalding hot. Ka ka ka. The hatch opened slowly, revealing Luya's face. Luya walked out of the cabin and glanced at the surrounding environment. This is the Earth in the Dragon Ball world. It's really different from the Earth where I live. Luya's identity in the previous life on Earth was a student with average grades. His hobby was watching island action blockbusters under the quilt. When he happened to brush up on a story about the relationship between number 18 and Zylu, it was an inexplicable time travel to this world. He is also very confused. He has seen all kinds of people who have traveled through, and people who have traveled through watching island action movies. He is probably the originator. Just when Luya was about to find a place to settle down, suddenly 2 huge breaths approached him. Luya looked with some doubts. Who could it be? In the next second, 2 figures flashed above him, a young man and a middle-aged man. The teenager wears a scholar's uniform, wears glasses, and looks like a good student, and the middle-aged person wears a white robe cape, black trousers, black pointed shoes, white hat, and green skin. Son Gohan and Piccolo. It was Gohan and Piccolo who came. Piccolo looked at Luya, and when he saw Luya's dress and his tail, his face suddenly condensed. Saiyan. What? Saiyan. Gohan looked at Luya in surprise. Luya looked at the two and raised his hand to say hello. Hi, how are you? Piccolo and Son Gohan looked at Luya with a strange look on their faces. Gohan approached Piccolo and whispered, Uncle Piccolo, is there a mistake? This person seems to have just landed on Earth. Piccolo's facial muscles twitched, and then he said solemnly, but just now I did feel that someone summoned a dragon here, strange. What's going on? He suddenly saw Luya. Who are you? Luya waved his tail and then grinned. I'm a Saiyan, Luya. How are you, Gohan? Piccolo. Gohan. Piccolo. The two were immediately stunned. The other party knew them. How is this going? How did you know us? Gohan asked in confusion. Luya smiled slightly and said, Of course I do. I only investigated you because I knew that there were Saiyans on your Earth, and then I came. Piccolo looked at Luya, wisely glanced at him, but said solemnly, Your chi is very powerful. It is definitely not something that an ordinary Saiyan can have, and Saiyans were not killed by Frieza. Logically speaking, the entire universe has only the Earth to have Saiyans. How did you survive? Luya thought for a while, then smiled and said, I'm not a Saiyan in your universe. Not from our universe. You mean you are a Saiyan from another universe? Piccolo stared at Luya in shock. Luya nodded with a smile. That's right. A few drops of cold sweat fell from Piccolo and Gohan's cheeks. Another universe. In addition to their universe, there are other universes. P.S. Dragon Ball Super Doujin came out. Hope you like it. Please help to rate it. Chapter 2_explosive. Luya vs Gohan. I have to say that the two of them were very shocked, because so far, the highest level they had contacted was only the God of Destruction, and the God of Destruction was already the ceiling of this universe. Open black lens bracket drop. Trigger system tasks. Mission content. Compete with Son Gohan. Close black lens bracket. Hearing this, Luya was stunned for a moment, and then there was a trace of excitement in his eyes. Just in time, he also wanted to see where his strength was. Thinking about it, Luya looked at Sun Wukong and said, You are also a Saiyan, can you learn from me? Hearing this, Sun Wukong was stunned for a moment, and then he pointed to himself, puzzled, You want to learn from me? Piccolo looked at Luya, wondering what he was thinking. Luya nodded. Yes, can you? Gohan glanced at Luya, then looked at Piccolo for his opinion. Piccolo was silent for a while, then nodded. If that's the case, then Gohan, you should have a contest with him. Gohan nodded. Okay, Uncle Piccolo. After a while, Luya and Gohan stood on the ground, and the distance between them was no more than 20 meters. Luya smiled slightly. Let's start. Gohan's face was serious. He took off his glasses, and immediately made a battle-ready posture. The two stared at each other closely, but neither made a move first. Ha! Soon, Gohan's figure shot out directly. Luya's face changed, and then he rushed out. Boom! As soon as the two fought, they were instantly indistinguishable, with equal speed and strength. In the air, Piccolo watched the battle on the field with a calm expression. After dozens of rounds, Gohan suddenly grabbed Luya's arm and swept out with one kick. Luya could only hurriedly cross his arms to resist, and with a heavy blow, he flew out directly. Boom! Luya's figure crashed into a hill, the hill exploded directly, and the smoke billowed, burying Luya's figure in it. Gohan's figure fell to the ground, and he said a little embarrassedly, "Am I going to be too hard?" Piccolo said lightly, "Actually, his anger is not weaker than yours, but it seems that something has gone wrong with him and he can't control that chi, so you have to be careful." Hearing this, Gohan put away his relaxed expression and looked seriously in Luya's direction. After the smoke dissipated, Luya suddenly stood up. He patted the dust on his body, but his face did not change. Gohan's eyes narrowed slightly, a little serious. Luya sighed a little at this time. Although he has a combat power of 100 million, he has not yet adapted to such a strong chi. Through the system, Luya knew that Sun Wuhan's combat power had reached 130 million, much stronger than him. In fact, with Gohan's potential, his fighting power is more than that. It's just because he neglected cultivation all these years, and then was asked by Chi-Chi to study hard and became a scholar. In terms of combat power, Piccolo was stronger than Gohan before he became a Super Sai. Luya looked at Gohan, and immediately smiled. Come again. After speaking, he suddenly disappeared in place. Gohan didn't talk nonsense and disappeared as well. The two began to fight again. In the sky, they could only see the impact wave they would generate, and the figure was so fast that people could not see clearly. After the battle with Gohan, Luya's control of chi also began to gradually increase. But he was still suppressed by Gohan. Ha, 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 ha. Suddenly, Gohan jumped into the air, and immediately released gas bombs at Luya. Not to be outdone, Luya also fired countless air bombs. The two faced the waves directly. The space between the two exploded, extremely intense. Call out. Suddenly, Gohan's figure suddenly disappeared, and he appeared behind Luya in the next second. An elbow came down, and Luya was directly dried to the ground, and another burst of smoke exploded. Gohan stood in midair. He began to combine his hands around his waist, and the next moment he began to gather energy. Turtle, Pi, Chi, Gung. Ha! Gohan slammed out the turtle Qigong, and the huge shockwave directly hit the ground where Luya fell. Boom! In an instant, the entire valley was razed to the ground. In the air, Piccolo was a little helpless. This kid, he was using too much force, but he was trying too hard to be serious. If you continue with this turtle school Qigong, I am afraid you will be seriously injured even if you don't die. Gohan was on top of the thick smoke, looking down. His eyes were serious and serious. He didn't feel that he had won. On the contrary, there was already a trace of uneasiness in his heart. Soon, the smoke dissipated, and a vague figure stood in the smoke, finally revealing Luya's figure. How could it be? When Gohan saw Luya's appearance, he was stunned. Piccolo couldn't calm down either. He couldn't hide his horror looking at Luya. Super Saiyan. At this time, Luya was surrounded by golden chi, and his hair stood up and turned golden yellow. The chi of the whole person was stronger than before. Open black lens bracket drop. The host activates the Super Saiyan bloodline, transforms into a Super Saiyan, and has a combat power of 5 billion. Close black lens bracket. Using the Super Saiyan bloodline, Luya successfully transformed into a Super Saiyan, and the combat power exploded from the original 100 million to 5 billion. 50-fold increase. Ha! Luya shouted angrily and burst into gas. A powerful aura swept away, and the sand flew away. The scene was spectacular. I didn't expect that in addition to the Saiyans on Earth, there are other Saiyans who can transform into Super Saiyans. Son Gohan suddenly laughed, and a strong fighting intent appeared in his eyes. The stronger the opponent, the prouder the Saiyans are suddenly inspired. Ha! Gohan shouted angrily and exploded, his hair instantly turned golden. Super Saiyan. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wrapped in a powerful golden airflow, Gohan's mouth curled slightly and said, "Let me see the Super Saiyans from other universes." Luya looked at Gohan. Although the potential of the other party has not been stimulated, but after transforming into a Super Saiyan, his combat power has also reached an astonishing 6.5 billion. So strong. Stronger than him. Luya's face was a little dignified. He knew that with his current strength, he couldn't beat Sun Wukong. Don't look at the gap of only 1.5 billion, but the gap between them is still very huge. Thinking like this, Luya suddenly gave up his explosiveness and changed back to his original appearance. Seeing this scene, Piccolo and Gohan were stunned and puzzled. Luya smiled and said, "I can't beat you." Hearing this, Gohan hesitated for a while, then stopped his anger and returned to his original appearance. Sure enough, the Earth Warrior didn't let me down. Luya laughed. Gohan also smiled and said, "You are also very strong. You are very strong even now that you can fight me." Luya nodded with a smile. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. The mission rewards 100 million combat power points. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Reward battle skill turtle school qigong. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Reward battle skill teleportation. Close black lens bracket. The mechanical prompt sounded in his mind, and Luya was overjoyed. Regardless of the combat power, this turtle school qigong and teleportation are the fragrance of the Dragon Ball world. At this moment, Luya feels that he can completely replace the protagonist of Sun Wukong. But this can only be imagined. Although he is also very powerful now, there is still a big gap between them compared to Sun Wukong. Recovering his mind, Luya suddenly looked at Piccolo and Gohan and asked, "You guys are here to investigate who used the Dragon Balls, right?" Piccolo's face stiffened. "How do you know?" Luya smiled slightly, "Because I know who it is." "Who is?" Chapter 3 _ Get the Unlimited King Fist. Luya smiled mysteriously, and then told the general story of the matter. After a long time. Frieza, he has been resurrected. Gohan and Piccolo had solemn expressions on their faces, and there was a trace of fear on their faces. There was no doubt that Frieza, the Emperor of the universe, had left a very deep impression on them. Dad beat him time and time again. I didn't expect his life to be so hard, and he was resurrected so quickly. Gohan said through gritted teeth. Piccolo's face was also solemn. He was killed by Frieza back then. Although he never fought again, he still had a lot of jealousy about him. Piccolo looked at Luya and asked, "How do you know? Didn't you just arrive on Earth? Could this kid, like Trunks, come from the future?" Played a riddle. Of course I have my channel. In short, Frieza has been resurrected, and he has become extremely powerful. Now the other party is training, and will attack the Earth in 4 months at the latest. At that time, the Earth will be in crisis. Gohan's face was solemn. Frieza, has he really become strong? Luya nodded. Very powerful. He didn't explicitly say that Frieza's normal state was enough to instantly kill Gohan, who became a Super Saiyan, so things wouldn't be interesting. Piccolo and Gohan looked at each other, and the former said, "Whether it's true or not, let's go back and discuss the countermeasures." Gohan nodded, then he looked at Luya, smiled and invited, Luya, right, if you don't mind, you can live with us. As soon as this statement came out, Piccolo frowned, but didn't say anything. Luya was stunned for a moment, thinking that he really had no way to go, so he nodded, well, I'll stay with you for a few days. After a while, several people left, but they went to Bulma's house first and gave her the capsule for research. Bulma and others were still very surprised to see Luya, a Saiyan, but because her husband Vegeta is also a Saiyan, Bulma is still enthusiastic about Luya. Farewell to Bulma, the three of them leave directly. So for the next few days, Luya stayed at Gohan's house, and he also asked Gohan to teach him some tricks, including turtle qigong. Krillin and other fellow warriors heard about Luya's existence and were surprised for a while, but when they heard the news of Frieza's resurrection, they couldn't believe it, so they began to practice. A few days later, Bulma came with surprising news. According to Space Patrol scum. Oh no, that's what Gak said, Frieza really came back to life. And he'll be on Earth soon. As soon as the news came out, everyone was even more certain, so they all entered into penance. Even Kalen suspended his police duties and began to practice. 2 months later. Luya is basically familiar with the powerful strength of his body, and his combat power has reached an astonishing 210 million. The cultivation talent already has the blood of the Saiyans. Gohan, I want to go to the spiritual time house of the gods to practice. On this day, Luya made this request. After Gohan heard this, he hurriedly discussed with Piccolo, and Piccolo finally agreed. Now that Goku and Vegeta are not around, the Frieza they have to face is a very scary character, and they still need a strong partner. The reason why Luya went to the spiritual time room to practice is because the system temporarily released a task. However, even if the system did not issue a task, he would still go there to practice. After all, anyone who has watched Dragon Ball knows that this is the fastest training place to improve his strength. Soon, Gohan brought Luya to the Temple of Heaven. Long time no see, Gohan. Tiantian trotted over with a surprise on his face and gave Gohan a hug. Since Piccolo merged with the previous generation of gods, Tiantian has served as the new god of the earth. Today, Tiantian is already a teenager. After Gohan and Tiantian reminisced, he began to introduce Luya to him. Tiantian said that he had been paying attention to the situation of the earth, and knew that Luya had no ill will towards the earth, so he also said hello politely. Hello, Luya, my name is Tiantian. Luya smiled slightly. Hello, Tiantian, he is indeed the most talented Namekian since Piccolo, the god of the earth, very suitable for you. Tiantian. He was a little surprised. Is the other party so familiar with him? Thinking of this, I looked at Gohan every day. The latter shrugged. He was a little puzzled himself, it seemed that he hadn't talked to the other party about Tiantian. Luya didn't think much about it. After a few words of greetings, he made a request to enter the spiritual time room to practice. Tiantian nodded. Mr. Bobo will take you there. At this time, Bobo stepped forward and said to Luya, please come with me. Luya nodded to Gohan, then followed Bobo. Standing still, Gohan looked at Luya's back and smiled. Gohan, don't you think his origin is a little mysterious? Tiantian suddenly asked. Gohan was stunned for a moment, then said, I don't think it's okay, he said he was a Saiyan from another universe. Tiantian was a little speechless, do you believe what he says? Gohan laughed. It's okay, the main reason is that he doesn't have any ill will towards the earth, then even if there is, I will personally take action against him. Tiantian sighed and immediately said, okay, then I'll leave it to you to deal with it, but Frieza is indeed resurrected. Haven't Wukong and the others been in touch yet? Gohan shook his head. Dad, he and Uncle Vegeta practiced at the God of Destruction Beerus, we can't contact them. Tiantian is a little dignified. Frieza's strength is very powerful, I am afraid you can't match it. Gohan also said solemnly, now there is no other way but to practice hard. Tiantian suddenly said, Gohan, can't you still enter the spiritual time room for a day? You can enter it to cultivate, and you can definitely become stronger with your potential. Gohan shook his head and laughed. No need, I don't want to train now. Tiantian. On the other side, Luya followed Bobo to the door of the spiritual time house. Bobo explained, in the spiritual time room, each person can only stay in it for 2 days. 1 day outside is equivalent to 1 year inside. The gravity inside has increased from 10 times to 50 times, so the effect has also been enhanced a lot. You pay attention to the time. If it exceeds the time, the entrance to the spiritual time house will disappear. Luya nodded, pretending to understand. Understood. Bobo nodded, then he opened the door of the time house and said to Luya, then you can go in. Luya nodded and walked in. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for completing the task of entering the spiritual time room for cultivation. Close black lens bracket. Reward 100 million combat power points. Close black lens bracket. Reward the strongest Saiyan talent. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Reward King Fist Unlimited. Close black lens bracket. After closing the door, Luya showed a smile. I have to say, this system is the real fragrance of Nima. The task is simple, the rewards are rich. With it, Luya wants to surpass Monkey King. Isn't it a matter of minutes? No, my vision is a little short. And Luya needs to set a small goal first, surpassing God first. Chapter 4_Frieza is here. Z fighters gather. Walking into the house, Luya looked outside. It was a boundless world of white light, and there was no end in sight, and the gravity here was very strong, worthy of 50 times that of the outside. In this case, let's start practicing. Luya rubbed his hands, and then activated the cultivation talent of the Saiyans. Open black lens bracket drop. Using the Super Saiyan talent, the host has the strongest talent of the Saiyan. Close black lens bracket. Luya grinned. System, how does this talent compare to Gohan? System, of course it is stronger. The host's talent is comparable to the strongest Saiyan Broly. Broly. Hearing this name, Luya is a little serious. Broly is really the strongest Saiyan, and the opponent's talent is also very terrifying. If he conducts regular systematic training, I am afraid that no one in the entire universe is his opponent. Of course, now is not the time for the opponent to appear. A year inside the spiritual time house, a day outside, time flies by. In the starry sky, a huge warship flew fast. Inside the battleship, a group of soldiers in combat clothing are kneeling in the same direction with their trembling bodies. There, sits an alien with a similar helmet. Frieza. It is the resurrected Frieza. At this time, the hatch opened, and several aliens walked in, led by Solb. Lord Frieza, we are almost on Earth. Solby said respectfully. Very good, I didn't expect you to resurrect me this time. Frieza smiled wickedly. Respectfully, it is our honor to be able to serve Lord Frieza. Ho ha ho ho, stop saying these words, you are also a bunch of rubbish, and when I was not around, the generals almost lost their game. Frieza smiled sarcastically. Solby and others were in a cold sweat. They don't want to either. If it wasn't for the various powerhouses that appeared in the universe, causing them to lose 60% of their troops, then they would still be the first army in the universe. Okay, let's stop talking nonsense. This time I go to Earth, I must find those Saiyans to settle accounts. Frieza said coldly and indifferently. He still remembered the scene where he was defeated by the Super Saiyan twice and lost to those stinky monkeys, which made him extremely humiliated. Solby did not dare to speak, because when Lord Frieza was resurrected, someone also persuaded Frieza not to provoke the Saiyans, but he was thrown out of the space capsule and died without a burial. Now through the cultivation of Lord Frieza, the power has become very terrifying. Go on, go full speed ahead. Arriving on Earth as soon as possible, I can't help it, I'm going to find those Saiyans. According to ellipsis. After an unknown amount of time, the realm kings and gods on the earth suddenly stopped what they were doing, and they looked up at the vast sky with seriousness in their eyes. Coming. On this day, a powerful air enveloped the entire earth. How can it be so fast? Piccolo, who was practicing, looked north in disbelief. Call out. At this time, Gohan's figure appeared beside Piccolo. Uncle Piccolo, there is a strong chi in Baidu. Cold sweat slid down Piccolo's face, and solemnly said, it's Frieza's anger. Let's go. Sensing the sudden appearance of chi, Earth-Z soldiers rushed to the source of the chi. At the same time, a small island in the northern capital. Boom. A huge spaceship landed slowly and stopped on the edge of a cliff. The hatch at the top of the spaceship opened, and a crowd of soldiers flew out of the spaceship. At the same time, a floating seat is slowly raised, and Frieza is sitting on it. Ho ha ho ho, Earth, I'm Frieza back again. Foley let out his characteristic laugh. Hey, people over there, please let me go. Suddenly, Frieza said to the soldiers suspended in front of him. The soldiers also immediately gave way. Just give these Earthlings my welcome gift. Frieza pointed out a finger toward the city in the distance, and a ray of red light gathered at his fingertips. Call out. The next moment, a red light shot out directly from Frieza's fingertips, and the light became bigger and bigger, and finally turned into a wave of light, submerging into the city. Silence for a moment. Boom. Under the shocking explosion, the entire north was directly destroyed. Ho ha ho, I really miss the thrill of this destruction. Frieza was in a good mood, and suddenly he turned his eyes in another direction. Clatter, clatter. The two figures flew at high speed and finally stopped on a cliff. It was Gohan and Piccolo. Looking at Baidu, which was turned to ashes, the two of them were dumbfounded. I'm late. You bastard. It's actually. Gohan gritted his teeth and looked at Frieza, his fists clenched and his veins burst out. Ho ha ho, it turned out to be you. You are the Namekian who was on the Namek planet, right? As for you, you look a bit like Sun Wukong. If you guess correctly, you should be the son of Sun Wukong. Son Gohan is over. I didn't expect that little devil's head to grow so big. Frieza looked at Gohan and Gohan in surprise. Humph. Frieza, you are so persistent. Piccolo looked at Frieza coldly. Bold. The ignorant Earthlings dare to be unreasonable to Lord Frieza. Solby shouted coldly. Gohan gave him a cold look, and was about to speak, when a figure flew over. It was Tianjin Fan. Uncle Tianjin Fan. When Gohan saw him, his expression softened and he greeted him with a smile. Tianjin Fan nodded, then glanced at Frieza. I didn't bring dumplings and the others, it's useless for him to come in this kind of battle. Gohan nodded. Afterwards, Keelan, Turtle Immortal and others came one after another, and even Bulma came to the scene in Jake's spaceship. Bulma, why are you here? Kling and the others were suddenly surprised. Bulma said lightly, that guy Vegeta wasn't here, so I came here. By the way, Trunks is still young, so I didn't let him know about it. Kaylin nodded in understanding, and then said, can't I contact Wukong and the others yet? Bulma shook his head. I tried to contact Wes, but he hasn't replied to me yet. Hearing this, everyone has a headache. To be honest, without Wukong, they have no sense of security. By the way, who is this? Krillin looked at Jake, who was hiding in the spaceship. Bulma smiled slightly. By the way, let me introduce to you. This is my friend, he is the Galactic Patrol, his name is Gak. Hearing this, Kaylin and the others all nodded their heads. They were used to Bulma's fondness for making messy friends. Hey, I said you guys, are you ignoring me too much? At this time, Frieza said with an expressionless face. Chapter 5_Cultivation in the Time House, the combat power is soaring. Hearing this, Bulma looked at Frieza and was a little curious, is this guy Frieza? He looks so ugly. Frieza. Hey, you have some virtue in your mouth. That's the Emperor of the Universe. Frieza. Jake suddenly gasped. Nima, why does this woman keep her mouth like this? Poison. As a friend, he said he was panicking at the moment. Bulma glanced at Gak and said disapprovingly, "What's this? Frieza is powerful, but our Gohan is stronger now, so it's no problem to deal with him, right, Gohan?" Gohan looked at Frieza solemnly, but shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, Aunt Bulma, the current Frieza's aura is so powerful that it's terrifying, and I'm afraid I won't be able to win against him." Huh, how could this be? The ease on Bulma's face disappeared, and she glanced at Frieza in disbelief. Frieza was already a little impatient at this time. He looked at Sun Wukong and asked, "Where's your father, Sun Wukong?" Gohan said solemnly, "Dad, he is still practicing hard. If you want to find him, you can wait." Bulma said quickly, Yes. Wukong and the others will be back soon, please wait." Ho 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 ho, is that so? Frieza suddenly laughed. "Well, anyway, I've waited for so long, and it's not at this moment, so I'll wait for you. For 10 seconds. 10 seconds. The crowd choked, a little weird. "Hey, are you too stingy?" Bulma said angrily. "Then, it's time. Let the game begin." Frieza revealed a wicked look. Solby waved his hand. "Kill them." In an instant, more than 1,000 soldiers rushed down like a wave. Gohan and the others gritted their teeth and watched this scene, and the next moment, they all exploded. More than 1,000 soldiers. On average, each person has to defeat more than 170. "Come on, everyone," the Turtle Immortal said solemnly. The next moment, Gohan and the others rushed out. Meanwhile, the Spirit Time House. At this time, Luya is still training, and at this moment his chi has reached a very terrifying level. He has been practicing here for a year and 3 months, which is equivalent to 6 hours a day in the outside world. And his combat power at this time is as high as 6.5 billion. That's right, in pure Saiyan state, the combat power is 6.5 billion. I have to say, the cultivation environment here, coupled with Luya's strongest Saiyan talent, his strength has increased dozens of times. Even stronger than the Super Sai who transformed into him at the beginning. Luya fell to the ground out of breath. He had undergone difficult training during this time, and the results were quite satisfactory. 6.5 billion, shouldn't be able to deal with fully. Luya pondered. He knew that Frieza's combat power under normal conditions should be between 7 billion and 8 billion. "It's been more than a year, it's time to go out," Luya said slowly. Although he may not be Frieza's opponent now, he can't bear such high-intensity training, and if people outside know that he has directly trained for a year or two to reach such a terrifying level, I am afraid they will put him treat it like a monster. Thinking of this, Luya walked to the exit of the time house. When Tien and Bobo were feeling the battle below, their faces were very serious, because Frieza at this time was too powerful, so powerful that they couldn't spy on its depth. After cultivating for 3 months, his strength has improved so much. Tien said with a wry smile. "I'm afraid Gohan and the others can't beat Frieza." Bobo also said. Smiling wryly every day, not only can't beat it, it's simply a gap between the sky and the ground. "When will Wukong and the others come back?" Tien said worriedly. Now that the 2 strongest Earth warriors, Goku and Vegeta, have disappeared, who should save the Earth from the crisis? Did something happen? Why do you look so preoccupied? Just when the 2 were worried, a suspicious voice came from behind them. Tien and Bobo were stunned for a moment, then turned around in surprise. I saw Luya walking over, with a relaxed smile on his face. "You, Mr. Luya, have you finished your practice?" Tien looked at Luya in surprise and asked. Luya smiled slightly, and then said, "Yes, I feel that practicing for a long time will put too much load on the body, so I came out ahead of time." Hearing this, Tien and Bobo looked at each other. Their faces were a little weird, and they always felt like they had heard this sentence somewhere. "By the way, what were you discussing just now? Why do you feel that your faces are not very good looking?" Luya asked. Tien woke up suddenly and said solemnly, Frieza, he has already arrived on Earth. What? So soon? Luya was a little surprised. It seems that it hasn't been 4 months yet. Why did you come? But Luya felt it, and indeed found Frieza's anger. This guy really came early. Tien said. I don't know either. Logically speaking, he should be 4 months later, but now it has arrived. Gohan and the others are fighting against them. Hearing this, Luya's eyes narrowed slightly, a little serious. No doubt, Frieza came so quickly. It was unexpected, but thinking about it, the other party has only practiced for less than 3 months. Then his combat power, is it also 8 billion? Thinking of this, Luya suddenly thought. System, can you detect Frieza's combat power? System, sorry, I can't detect it. The other party is too far away from the host, so I can't detect it. Luya nodded, and then said, okay, then I'll go meet him. Open black lens bracket drop. Trigger the system task. The content of the task. Defeat Frieza and save the Earth. Close black lens bracket. The mechanical sound of the system fell. Luya's face froze. Nima, defeat Frieza. How can that be? He can't even estimate whether he is Frieza's opponent or not. It would be difficult for him to defeat Frieza. And isn't that Sun Wukong's mission? Just when Luya shook his head, Tien suddenly bowed to Luya. Mr. Luya, can I invite you to join the battle? Help Gohan and the others to defeat Frieza. Of course, although this is a bit unrealistic, but please help. Looked at Tien, and then smiled slightly. Okay, you are the god of the earth. You don't have to be so polite to me, and I also use your spiritual time house, so Frieza, I will defeat it myself. Yes. The words fell, and Luya pointed to his eyebrows, feeling Frieza's breath. This is... Tien and the two of them saw Luya's gesture, and they were horrified, as if thinking of something incredible. Luya suddenly said in surprise, I found it. He waved to Tien and Bobo, then see you next time. After that, his figure disappeared directly in place. Tien and Bobo's faces were still in shock, just now. Teleport. Chapter 6 _ Are you here to be funny? Turtle School Qigong. Qi Yuan / Magic Light Killing Cannon. Qigong Cannon. Boom boom boom. With the sound of explosions, countless soldiers were smashed into scum. Although their number is 100 times that of Gohan. But the quality is really not good. Everyone present is a master of 1 against 100, but even so, these soldiers seem to be invincible, and they gradually consume the physical strength of the Z soldiers. Seeing his comrade was a little unstoppable, how could Gohan still hold back? Instantly transform into a Super Saiyan. In an instant, his breath skyrocketed. Gohan's face was indifferent. He stretched out his palm towards those soldiers and fired a laser cannon, instantly killing and injuring a lot of people. At this time, Piccolo was on a par with the Bull Demon soldier. Gohan didn't hesitate, and a flash had already appeared in front of the opponent. He didn't move, just stared at him so tightly. Damn brat. Go to hell. The Bull Demon soldier was furious, then slammed a punch at Gohan. Call out. But the Bull Demon is empty. Gohan appeared directly behind the opponent, and immediately slapped a knife in his hand. Suddenly, the Bull Demon was hit hard, and the whole person was stupid. Lost consciousness and hit the ground heavily. After finishing the solution, Gohan nodded to Piccolo and disappeared in the blink of an eye. It is worth mentioning that Gohan didn't kill the soldiers, he just knocked out these soldiers. On the other side, Frieza, who was watching this scene, had blue veins on his forehead, and some gnashing teeth looked at Son Gohan who was fighting bravely. Who is this person? Soul was full of cold sweat, seeing his soldiers fall one by one, his heart was bleeding. This is a Super Saiyan. I didn't expect that the son of Sun Wukong would do this, but I have to say that he is as kind as his father, and his kindness makes people want to vomit. Although Frieza's strength is higher than Gohan's, he was already beheaded by Saiyans twice. At this moment, seeing Son Gohan's transformation, his face was extremely ugly. The next moment, Frieza suddenly appeared in front of Gohan. Gohan sensed the danger and immediately shouted angrily, punching Frieza with a punch. Frieza's face was indifferent, and he easily grabbed Gohan's fist, bullied him directly, and slammed a solid punch on Gohan's stomach. Wow! How could Gohan withstand the impact of the opponent, and he was beaten and even vomited out his bile. However, his fist was caught, his body did not fly backwards, but his body softened, his golden hair returned to black, and his chi also decreased sharply. Gohan, Klimbik and the others saw that Gohan was KO'd like this, and their faces suddenly became horrified. Frieza looked at Son Gohan, and then showed a Radian. The next moment he grabbed Gohan's hand and kicked him directly. Wow! Gohan let out a scream, flew out, and crashed into a cliff, and the cliff collapsed. Go and save him. Kailin's expression changed and he said quickly. Piccolo gritted his teeth, then burst out, rushing directly towards Gohan's position. Call out. Suddenly, Frieza blocked his way. He looked at Piccolo with an evil smile, and spread his palm toward Piccolo. A red air bomb blasted Piccolo directly into the sea. Bick! Kling and the others were suddenly desperate. Even Piccolo was not the opponent's opponent. How could they fight? Frieza glanced at Krillin and the others with a meaningful smile. Krillin and the others were all caught by Frieza and didn't dare to move. The other party was so terrifying. They have absolutely no chance of winning. Ho ho ho, it seems that I'm too powerful, and I'm bullying people a bit. Frieza didn't shoot anymore, he has no desire to shoot now. He originally thought that these people could make him move his muscles and bones, but it was a bit of a surprise. Not enough to see. Frieza withdrew his gaze and was about to return to his throne. Suddenly, at this moment, his eyes widened, and then he turned around and looked in one direction. There, at some point, a boy appeared, and the boy had a tail. You, who are you? Frieza looked at the boy in surprise. The boy smiled at him. Frieza, I finally see you. Huh, you know me? Frieza asked suspiciously. Boy nodded. I know you naturally. Luya, why are you here? No, you are finally here. Bulma suddenly said in surprise. Luya nodded slightly to him. They've been waiting for a long time. What? He's that Saiyan Luya. He looks very powerful. Both Keelan and Turtle Immortal looked at Luya in surprise, a little curious. But soon, their faces became solemn, because they found that they could not see the strength of each other's chi. How can it be? Smiled slightly, then looked at Keelan. Mr. Keelan, you should have fairy beans on you, right? Go and save Piccolo and Gohan. Hearing this, Kaylin was a little stunned. Excuse me, do you know me? Luya was dumbfounded, and then smiled. I know, but now is not the time to say this, save people first. Hearing this, Krillin nodded clearly, and then he glanced at Frieza with a lingering fear, and flew to the sea. However, Frieza obviously refused to let him succeed, and the next moment he appeared in front of Krillin, blocking his view. Clinton's expression changed suddenly, and he looked at Frieza with gritted teeth, ready to fight to the death. Call out. At this time, Luya suddenly appeared in front of him, facing Frieza, and said, Your opponent is me, just right, I want to see how powerful the Universe Emperor Frieza is. Hearing this, Frieza's mouth curled up. Ho 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 ho. Is that so? Well, then it's better to be respectful than to obey. The corners of Luya's mouth rose. Seeing this, Klein immediately flew over to save people. Luya and Frieza looked at each other in the air, neither of them made a move first. He had seen Frieza's combat power clearly just now. Since the opponent did not attack after these 4 months, his combat power was only 7 billion. And when Gohan transformed into a Super Saiyan, his combat power increased to 6.8 billion. It was with the combat power of 200 million and Frieza's perfect sneak attack that Gohan would be instantly killed. Tisk tisk, Luya is a pity. If Gohan can never give up his practice, then he will not be weaker than Frieza now. But this way he is not afraid anymore. After all, his combat power is 6.5 billion. Although there is a little gap, but it will not be defeated. Luya suddenly stretched out his palm towards Frieza. Frieza was stunned for a moment, then smiled slightly, without any extra movement. Puff! The next moment, Luya suddenly fired an air bomb. Shoot Frieza straight. Frieza's smile didn't change, he shook his head lightly, and the air bomb flew directly past his ear, not hitting him. Frieza looked at Luya and smiled. Are you here to be funny? Luya smiled mysteriously. Really? Frieza was stunned for a moment, and then he had a bad premonition. He suddenly remembered something, and then looked back suddenly. I saw Luya's air bomb, which directly turned a corner and slammed into Solby. No, Lord Frieza, help me, help, ah. Boom. Solb was directly smashed by the gas bomb. Chapter 7_Fight. Luya vs Frieza. No one thought that Luya's goal turned out to be Solb. But they were puzzled, because Solby was just a little scumbag. Why should he do it in the first place? Frieza's face was a little distorted. He turned his head and stared at Luya. You seem to be a little arrogant. Luya smiled slightly and said, I just think that a fair fight between the two of us should exclude other interference factors. What do you think? Hearing this, Frieza's face sank. Does the other party know something? In fact, he specially prepared a trump card for the safety of this trip to the Earth, but what he didn't expect was that it was destroyed by this kid of unknown origin. This made him a little angry. But after that, Frieza suddenly showed a cruel smile. Ho 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 ho, since you said so, then I will help you to eliminate interference. As soon as he finished speaking, Frieza suddenly pointed in the direction of Tianjin Fan with a bang. The red light is directly lacing out. Luya's eyes froze, and the next moment he suddenly appeared in front of Tianjin Fan, directly knocking Frieza's attack into the air. Frieza's face was calm, but a little cold. Lightly, Frieza will be handed over to me, you retreat to a safe place. Hearing this, Tianjin Fan nodded immediately, please. After he finished speaking, he and Turtle Immortal looked at each other, and then flew in the direction of Bulma. Luya looked at Frieza and smiled. Now, we can start the fight. Frieza landed slowly, then looked at Luya, and said, who are you? Why are you so powerful? Luya grinned, and then lifted the tail wrapped around his waist. Seeing the tail, Frieza's expression suddenly changed. The tail. Are you a Saiyan? Luya smiled and said, that's right. Was it an accident? Frieza was a little unbelievable. Impossible, except for the Saiyans on Earth. The other Saiyans have already been destroyed by me and Planet Vegeta. Luya shook his head and said, don't pay attention to those things, let's fight. Frieza put away his surprise, and immediately laughed. You are so confident that you can defeat me. Luya laughed suddenly, and then shouted violently, and in an instant, a terrifying chi burst out from his body. Frieza looked at Luya, who suddenly exploded and was stunned. Impossible. Why is your power so strong? Wrapped in pure white air, Luya has a confident smile on his face. I thought you would be 4 months later, but I didn't expect that you came early, which surprised me. Take out you the strength of it. Frieza looked at Luya with an unsightly expression on his face. The development of things had exceeded his expectations. He didn't expect that in addition to Sun Wukong and Vegeta, there would be such a powerful Saiyan. Damn. Boom. The next moment, Frieza suddenly started to burst into anger. Purple chi wrapped around his body. The strength of that chi was not much weaker than Luya. Luya looked at Frieza, then smiled slightly. Every cell in his body was already shaking with excitement. On the other side, Krillin helped Piccolo and Gohan up, and fed them Senbean. As expected of the fairy beans that can cure hundreds of injuries, the two of them just swallowed and woke up in the next second. Krillin, are you all right? Where's Frieza? Gohan sat up and asked in confusion. Krillin smiled slightly and said, Gohan, I'm fine, that Saiyan friend you brought back is so amazing. Saiyan. Gohan was at a loss when he heard it, and suddenly Piccolo said in surprise, That's Saiyan Luya. Hearing this, Gohan hurriedly looked towards the field. Suddenly, Even Gohan was stunned. Is this Luya? How did his anger become like this? It's so powerful. Gohan's mouth widened in surprise, a little unbelievable. You know, he was suppressing Luya before, but now that it is from the other party that he feels his own insignificance. Piccolo's face was also solemn. I didn't expect that his talent was so powerful, and he has already increased his strength to this level in just over a day of entering the time house. I'm afraid, even Wukong and the others are not as good as it is. Hearing this, everyone's faces became serious. In the eyes of the friends, no one's strength can surpass Goku. Even if there is, then Vegeta is undoubtedly the most promising one, but now there is a Luya. How could this not shock them? It seems that Vegeta, the second child of the millennium, is going to move a bit. In the field, Luya and Frieza looked at each other, and suddenly, his anger skyrocketed again. Frieza is also not to be outdone. Ha! Luya suddenly shouted angrily, and his figure rushed up. Chi! Frieza snorted coldly, and a burst of air also rushed out. Boom! The two fists directly touched each other, and in an instant, a wave of air burst out. The two fists pressed against each other, neither of them took a step back, they kept raising their chi, and they couldn't stand still. Suddenly, Frieza showed a radian, and then he instantly grabbed Luya's hand, yanked it violently, and pushed it out with one foot. Luya guessed the other party's move early, and the other hand directly pressed Frieza's knee, turned against the customer, and threw it out. Ah! Frieza's body fell directly to the ground like a shot put. Luya didn't stop, and threw a gas bomb. Boom! The gas bomb exploded directly, and dust and smoke were everywhere. Luya looked at the smoke and squinted his eyes slightly. According to the law of Dragon Ball, the bigger the smoke, the more proof that the other party has nothing. Really, after the smoke dissipated, Frieza's figure was revealed. At this time, he stood on the ground and looked at Luya with a smile. Ho 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 ho. You really didn't disappoint me, except for Sun Wukong. You are the only one that makes me pay attention. Opponent. Luya smiled slightly and said, okay, just say a few words of nonsense, and transform. You are only in the first form now. Frieza was a little surprised, but soon laughed. It's interesting, although I don't know why you are so clear to me, but since that's the case, let's play with you before the decisive battle with Sun Wukong. As soon as the words fell, Frieza suddenly howled. In an instant, the ground around his feet cracked, and the gravel floated up without gravity. Then, a powerful purple aura erupted from Frieza's body. Ah! Frieza's body suddenly began to swell, and then it became more than 3 times its original size. But it didn't stop, his body began to change again, becoming a duck-like appearance, and finally, his body began to shrink again, and it directly turned into a similar appearance to the original appearance. It's just that the original helmet is gone, replaced by a bald head. The violent purple rage raged, Frieza relaxed, and he looked at Luya. This is my final form. Chapter 8_Intense Collision. Teleportation Exposure. What a powerful chi. It turns out that Frieza has never used his full strength. Kaitlin was full of cold sweat, and his face was already a little terrified. How did he cultivate? Why did he reach this level? A mortal turtle also said in disbelief. Gohan and Piccolo did not speak, and looked at the two with a solemn expression. At this moment, the opponent's battle, they can't get involved. Because the power that Frieza has shown has far surpassed them. The final form. It's a bit awesome. Luya looked at Frieza, also slightly stunned. This guy is really rude. He directly used the final system to fight himself, which caught him off guard. After 2 transformations, Frieza's combat power has reached an astonishing 1.5 trillion. It seems that I can't keep my hands anymore. I have to do my best to repay you. Luya smiled slightly, and then his anger suddenly became restless. Ha! With a loud drink, Luya's anger rose exponentially. His hair also turned golden in an instant. In the same way, his chi also turned golden yellow. Super Saiyan. Luya becomes a Super Saiyan. His combat power has soared from 6.5 billion to 325 billion. Frieza's face changed. Super Saiyan. I didn't expect you to be able to transform. Are you really a Saiyan from planet Vegeta? Luya smiled slightly and said, sorry, I'm a Super Saiyan from another universe. Hearing this, Frieza's face froze, then frowned. Other universes. On the other hand, the other friends were also very surprised. Krillin, are Saiyans from other universes so powerful? Gohan said solemnly. I think Mr. Luya's strength has surpassed his father. How could it be? He surpassed Wukong. This is impossible. Tianjin Fan was a little surprised, and the first one disagreed. Cold sweat fell on Piccolo's face, and then he said, Luya may indeed be stronger than Wukong, and his talent is slightly higher than that of Wukong and Vegeta. Luya was not Gohan's opponent before, but now, after a year of cultivation in the Time House, he has reached this level, and it can be seen that he has surpassed us. The boys looked at the field in disbelief. They were a little complicated because they never thought that apart from Beerus, the god of destruction, there were other people who surpassed Goku and Vegeta. What was even more surprising was that the other party also still a Saiyan. At this moment, Luya looked at Frieza, and then laughed in a low voice, I still can't beat you. Since that's the case. Ha! Luya exploded again, and the golden airflow rose directly into the sky. Everything around is razed to the ground at this moment. I saw Luya's whole body, and suddenly there was a trace of lightning. Frieza looked at Luya's sharply rising air, and his face changed suddenly, and he said in disbelief, impossible. It's impossible. That is, the second stage of Super Saiyan. Gohan also changed back then. He will change too. Krillin and the others lost their voices in horror again. Gohan's eyes widened. Super Saiyan 2, this is the state he became when he defeated Sirius, Mr. Luya also. After Luya's roar fell, his anger suddenly exploded. In an instant, he couldn't bear it and a huge pit appeared directly under his feet. Shoot tilde shoot tilde shoot tilde shoot tilde shoot tilde. CC. CCC. The golden yellow gas envelops the current, and Luya's hair has grown a lot at this time. Like a hedgehog, he is more handsome than when he was in Super Race 1. Open black lens bracket drop. The host uses the Super Saiyan transformation skills to transform into the second stage of Super Saiyans, with a combat power of 1.65 trillion. Close black lens bracket. Frieza was at a loss for words, and the opponent's re-evolution, the power is actually higher than himself. Luya looked at him playfully, and then said, the battle continues. Call out. After speaking, Luya's figure flashed and disappeared. Frieza gritted his teeth, burst into gas, and then disappeared. Bump bump. As soon as the battle started, the two directly faced each other at high speed, and countless ripples appeared in the air, representing the intensity of the battle. Below, the Z soldiers are watching this scene closely. It's too fast, I can't catch their movements at all. Tianjin Fan gritted his teeth, his three eyes kept moving, but he couldn't keep up with Luya and Frieza's movements. Gohan is also frowning at this time, he is also a little unable to keep up with the rhythm. Only Piccolo keeps his eyes fixed on the sky, his unique body structure allows him to see their movements. Bump. Woohoo. Suddenly, a figure quickly fell. It was Frieza. Call out. And Luya appeared behind him in the next second, shouted loudly, and punched. Frieza's face changed, and he directly used his tail to wrap Luya's hand. Luya sneered, then grabbed the opponent's tail with both hands, and slammed it wildly with himself as the center. Ah! Frieza exclaimed in shock. Ha! Luya exerted his strength and threw Frieza directly into the ground. The opponent's figure slammed on the ground and bounced again, and a big pit appeared directly on the ground. Take the move. Luya's hand condensed into a ball of gas light, and then he threw the gas bomb in his hand violently. Frieza's face was fierce, he stabilized his body, and also shot a gas bomb. Boom! The two strands collided directly and exploded. What? Luya rushed towards Frieza with golden air through the smoke. The latter suddenly burst into gas, and then kept releasing gas bombs towards Luya. Luya was a little caught off guard, and crossed his hands directly to block the opponent's attack. Seeing this, Frieza immediately released gas bombs like crazy. Luya resisted with some difficulty, and his chi continued to weaken. No, we're going to help him. Kaylin's face changed greatly, and he was about to go up. No, it's useless even if we go to help now. We can't get involved in this kind of battle. Gohan stopped Krillin and said solemnly. Klein said, then what to do? Did you watch Luya lose? That way our Earth will be finished. Gohan was silent. Piccolo suddenly looked at Bulma. Bulma, Wukong and the others have no news yet. Bulma shook his head helplessly. No, I don't have their contact information. I can only communicate with them when Whis contacts me actively. Chi. Piccolo snorted impatiently, and then stopped asking. In the field, Frieza was already showing a smug smile. He thought that if he suppressed the opponent like this, he would win. But just when Frieza was complacent, a figure appeared behind him and immediately punched him. Frieza was completely dumbfounded. He turned around in disbelief, but saw Luya looking at him with a sneer. How is that possible? That's teleportation. Isn't that Dad's move? Gohan couldn't help shouting when he saw this scene. P.S. According to the reactions of major readers, the combat power is now adjusted. Don't say that the author can't count, I was wrong. Ordinary form transformed into Super Race 1, combat power increased 50-fold. Super Race 1 turned into Super Race 2, a 5-fold increase. Super Race 2 turned into Super Race 3, a 5-fold increase. This is my limit, because I have written so much, and there are indeed changes, so some readers can abandon the book if they cannot accept it, don't mind. Chapter 9 _ the last whole card, Golden Frieza. When Luya performed teleportation, everyone was stunned. Why does Lure move instantly? Isn't that Goku's trick? Could it be that the other party has also been to that planet? Gohan was a little puzzled. If Luya knew the turtle-style Qigong, he would still accept it. After all, he taught Luya, but he would not be able to teleport. In the field, after giving Frieza a critical blow, Luya kicked him away, and at the same time his figure disappeared again, and the next moment appeared in front of Frieza. With another critical blow, the opponent was like a sandbag. The same was chased and beaten by Luya. Bump. Wow. Luya clasped his fists in both hands, and smashed Frieza into the ground with one blow, and the ground cracked directly. Standing in the air, Luya looked down, and then put his hands on his waist. Familiar moves, everyone can see at a glance that it is a move of Turtle School Qigong. Kaylin had a cold sweat on his face. Gohan, did you teach him the Turtle Qigong? Gohan nodded. Yes, I taught it. In fact, he didn't teach it. Luya has a system, and he can learn it directly, but he doesn't know it. Turtle, Pi, Chi, Gong. Boom boom boom. In an instant, a powerful chi gathered in Luya's hands, radiating radiance. Drink. Luya held up his hand, and suddenly, a huge Qigong wave spurted out like a fountain, directly submerging into the ground. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, a huge explosion appeared, and the entire island trembled directly. Get out of here. Gohan's face changed, then his figure flashed. He came to Bulma's side, and flew away with her. Seeing this, the expressions of the others changed greatly, and they all flew far away. Boom. Luya's one-hit turtle Qigong directly raised the entire island to the ground. The island collapsed, and the waves swept through. Shish. Luya was wrapped in golden air, looking down, expressionless. He didn't think Frieza was killed by him, this guy, but he hasn't used his real strength yet. Thinking of this, Luya suddenly became vigilant. On the other side, other people also came to the island on the other side and looked at that side solemnly. You said, can Luya really defeat Frieza? Krillin asked with some doubts. Gohan shook his head. I don't know, Frieza came to Earth this time, so he should be well prepared. Although he has turned into his final form now, it makes me feel bad. I think so too, Tianjin Fan said solemnly. But it's amazing that Luya can fight Frieza to this extent. At least, he can buy us time. Wait for Goku and the others to go back. Piccolo said solemnly. I heard that everyone is a little helpless. Wukong and the others have no news so far, and Weiss did not take the initiative to contact Bulma. In this case, they can't find Wukong and the others. So now just have to wait. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, a slight vibration came at this time, and everyone was tense. Luya in midair was also looking at the seawater a little seriously at this time, as if something was about to rush out from it. Boom. Next second, a huge water column soars into the sky. In the water column, a vague figure rose, but Luya knew without guessing that it was Frieza. This guy is alright. But this also made him a little excited. The stronger the opponent, the more excited he was. Frieza slowly lifted into the air. Although he was not seriously injured now, the abrasions on his body still made him a little embarrassed. Frieza looked at Luya blankly, not knowing what he was thinking. Luya looked at each other, then smiled slightly. Interesting, you're actually fine. His combat power is 10 billion higher than the opponent's, but he has only gained a little bit of the upper hand in the battle so far. It can be seen that the opponent's combat experience is stronger than his own. Frieza looked at Luya dignifiedly, and then said, your current strength really puzzles me. Why are you so powerful? Are you really a Saiyan from other universes? Luya raised his eyebrows and said, why not? Frieza's face suddenly turned cold. I didn't expect that Saiyans from other universes are so powerful. Could it be that there are also Frieza races on their side? Luya was a little surprised. How could the other party know? Although he is not a Saiyan from other universes, he knows that there is a universe that has a powerhouse similar to their current 7th universe, and that is the 6th universe, where there are Saiyans, and there is a similar Lisa's sinister villain. Seeing Luya's expression, Frieza understood. Looks like I guessed it right. Luya shook his head and said, okay, don't talk nonsense. Let's fight again. I want to defeat you, not to brag with you. Bragging? What do you mean? Frieza asked in confusion. Luya was stunned for a while, and then he was a little weird. Then he remembered that the language style of his world was a little different from the one here, so he said lightly, it means literally, bragging X, do you understand? Are you a foreigner? Frieza frowned. Luya stared. Nima, do you still know foreigners? Frieza frowned, and then said coldly, you want to defeat me alone. That's impossible. He has been defeated by Saiyans in the past. How can he tolerate this kind of humiliation to happen again? Luya smiled and said, I know you haven't displayed your real strength, so now, transform yourself. What? Frieza's face froze, and then she said in disbelief, you. How did you know that I can still transform? He can transform into Golden Frieza again, but how did the other party know about his secret, his most powerful trick? Luya smiled slightly, because I'm already familiar with this plot. Frieza. Come on, let me see how powerful Golden Frieza is. Otherwise, you are no match for me now. Luya laughed jokingly. Frieza's face sank, and he was a little vigilant in his heart. The other party not only knew that he had not transformed, but also knew about his Golden Frieza. What is his origin? This is a group that makes him jealous. But since this is the case, he has no retreat and no longer transforms, then he is not the opponent of this Saiyan. In this way, his plan this time has completely failed. Humph. It was originally prepared for Sun Wukong, but since you are provoking me like this, then I'll be more respectful than obedient. Frieza suddenly sneered, and then his anger began to rage. Chapter 10_Breakout. Sevenfold World King Fist. Boom. Following Frieza's explosion, the sky immediately darkened, and among the thick clouds, billowing lightning flashed, as if the end had come. At this moment, within a few miles, no, it should be the entire earth, filled with Frieza's breath. That air is amazing and powerful. Krillin and the others were all stunned to see this scene, they never imagined that Frieza, his anger, could soar to such a level. This guy, what kind of training has he gone through in the years he died? Piccolo looked at this scene in disbelief with a cold sweat on his face. Originally, they thought that after so many years, their power had risen to surpass the original Frieza, but they didn't expect that Frieza had become so much stronger. The other party is really a genius monster. Gohan looked at Frieza's figure. His eyes were surprisingly solemn, and the opponent's strength. I am afraid that he would become a Super 2 again and not his opponent. Boom boom boom. Not only were they shocked, Luya was also very shocked. Unlike others, he could clearly feel how much Frieza had increased. 1.5 trillion, 1.6 trillion, 1.7 trillion. The opponent's chi has increased somewhat abnormally, and it has almost increased exponentially. Luya is a little embarrassed. Nima, in this way, he is far from being an opponent of others. How are you going to slip? Can't slip. If he slips, so who will stop Frieza? Will the earth be over by then? But if you don't slip, you may be the one who will die. System, can you issue quest rewards in advance? Luya asked the system quickly. System, no, the host has not completed the task of defeating Frieza, and the system does not yet support issuing rewards in advance. Worthy. Face was full of black lines. Then what if I die? System, if the host is killed, then this system will leave the host and look for other hosts. Luya. What the hell? Ruthless. Is there any way? Luya's mouth twitched slightly. Nima, this system seems a little unreliable. System, the host has two choices. 1. The host uses the blessing of the King Fist. The winning rate is 50%. And the second, the host uses the ape. There is a 50% chance to trigger the hidden skill, Transformation Super 4. The winning percentage is 80%. Hearing that, Luya was just about to choose the second one, but the system voice sounded again. Reminder, if the host uses ape transformation, he may not be able to withstand the fierce Saiyan character at that time, and the host will lose his mind and become a killing machine. Luya. Ho ha ho ho, your expression, don't you already feel fear? Suddenly, Frieza's evil laughter came. Luya saw that Frieza at this time had turned golden, except for the color others haven't changed much, but Luya knows that the other party has changed, not just the color. Golden Frieza. Under the detection of this system, Golden Frieza's combat power has reached 15 trillion. I am Nima. 15 trillion. What is this concept? This is undoubtedly more than 50 times stronger than Super Saiyan 2. Tricky. At this time, Luya felt that the other party was so difficult. Nima. 15 trillion combat power. I am afraid it is enough to kill him now. Luya's face was extremely solemn, not to mention Gohan and the others, who were already stunned at this time. Is this Frieza's true strength? Terrible. Under that huge anger, they all felt extremely depressed, just standing in the distance. They couldn't have the idea of fighting with each other at this time. Fear has nearly stopped their cells from functioning. This form, I call it Golden Frieza. Frieza's face showed a wicked charm, and then said, although I don't know why you know my trump card, but in this case, then you should also have a trump card to ask for. Do it. Luya forced a smile, and a drop of cold sweat fell from his face. You guy is indeed very powerful. It seems that you have surpassed Sun Wukong and the others. Oh, what do you mean? Could it be that I can surpass them only by transforming into Golden Frieza? Frieza smiled and said lightly. Luya nodded. It's true. Ho ha ho. Is that so? Is that so? Very good. Then I will deal with you first, and then go to Sun Wukong. Frieza's face turned hideous, and then he did not attack Luya, but said, the power is much higher than yours now, but I can give you a chance. As long as you promise to be my loyal servant and swear allegiance to me, I can spare your life. Luya smiled slightly and said, that's not necessary, because I don't necessarily lose. As soon as the words fell, Luya burst into gas directly. Golden gas wrapped around him, and there was a series of lightning inside. Ha! King Fist. Suddenly, Luya roared, and then, there was a burst of red gas on his body. In an instant, Luya's power is also rapidly increasing. Jia Wangquan. He will too. Kaylin and others looked at Luya in a daze, already suspicious of life. Why, even the king of fist Luya can do it. Teleportation. Turtle School Qigong. Kai King Fist. This Saiyan named Luya actually succeeded in practicing Goku's trick. It seems that we all underestimate him. Piccolo's face was also solemn. At this time, Luya's outburst of anger, in his opinion, was already above Wukong. Of course, before Goku went to Beerus, the god of destruction, Goku was definitely not the opponent of this Luya. It can only be said that the opponent's talent potential is very terrifying. Just by going into the time house, this kind of improvement has been achieved. You must know that in order to deal with Sharu, they also entered the time house, but they did not improve like Luya. Even Gohan didn't do it. Shish. In the field, the airflow is raging, Luya's chi is still rising, and the red chi other than his golden chi is also rapidly getting stronger. Doubled, triple. 1.6 trillion, 1.7 trillion, 1.8 trillion. Luya's chi also became stronger at this time, and his strength had a tendency to pour water into the balloon, expanding more and more. I remember this trick. This is the trick that Sun Wukong used on the planet Namek. I didn't expect that. You will too. Frieza looked at Luya, and his eyes gradually became dignified. The opponent's move has already brought him a threat. What? Sevenfold World King Fist. Luya roared. The surrounding venue was directly shattered, the tsunami hit, and the water column shot into the sky. Breathtaking. P.S. Dragon Ball fans, I hope you like it. Ask for ratings and rewards. Chapter 11_Super Turtle Qigong. Shish. At this moment, Luya's body is completely wrapped in golden air and red air, and his cold expression is like a god of war. His muscle lines are obvious, a little bigger than before, full of explosive power. In fact, Luya is still very worried, because it is unprecedented to transform into Super Saiyan 2 and then perform the World King Fist. Even Sun Wukong can only use it when it is super blue. When he was in the Spirit Time Room, he was already practicing this Kaiwang boxing, and he still insisted on using the form of a Super Saiyan to maintain Kaiwang boxing status, and today's 7 times Kaiwang boxing, even if he uses it, took half a year to acquire the strongest super talent. Otherwise, with his talent, his strength may be far more than that. Boom boom boom. Open black lens bracket drop. The host succeeds in using the King's Fist, and the side effects are reset to 0 and the calculation begins. Side effects +1 now. Close black lens bracket. At this time, the sound of the system sounded in his mind, which made Luya stunned and puzzled. System, what do you mean? System. The World King Fist obtained by the host does not have side effects from the beginning like Sun Wukong, but it has no side effects at the beginning, and the side effects will only accumulate when the host uses it. Hearing this, Luya was stunned, and immediately ecstatic. Isn't that even if I say that I can always maintain this form? System. This is theoretically possible. Although the King's Fist has no side effects, the chi it needs to consume is very huge. With the current state of the host, it can last for at most 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Luya's eyes condensed. This may be enough. Because his combat power with the sevenfold World King Fist has now reached 11,375 billion. That's right. That is, from more than 1 trillion to more than 1130 billion. Swish. At this time, a golden figure appeared in front of Luya. Before Luya could react, he felt hot on his face. In the next moment, he screamed in agony, and his figure flew out and crashed into the seawater. The person who shot was Frieza, who stood in the void, looked at the sea, and smiled. It seems that you think I'm weak. How dare you be distracted while fighting? Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a water column rose into the sky, and then, Luya's figure flew up. His breath did not diminish, looked at Frieza, and said with a smile, "Come on." Frieza's face turned hideous, and then his body disappeared like a cannonball. Luya disappeared in an instant, and the next moment, rolling waves erupted again in the void. Intense. These two are evenly matched. Krillin sighed as he watched the fight. No, on the surface, Frieza has the absolute upper hand. Piccolo's eyes narrowed slightly, always staring at the battle. Woo-hoo. Luya and Frieza fought at a high speed. From time to time, you punched and kicked me, but the hit rate was not high, and they were all blocked by the opponent. Of course, during this period, Luya was also punched and kicked by Frieza. After all, Frieza has the upper hand. Drink. Luya suddenly flashed behind Frieza, and with his hands up, a gas bomb was shot directly, and it was shot backwards. Luya gritted his teeth and rushed out, but the next moment Frieza, who was flying upside down, suddenly disappeared, and then he suddenly appeared in front of Luya, so fast that even Luya only saw an afterimage. Touch. Wow. Good guy. Frieza threw a punch and smashed Luya's stomach. The latter foamed at the mouth, and flew out like a bow shrimp. Frieza didn't give Luya a chance. He was even faster, rushed in front of Luya at supersonic speed, and slammed his fists down again. Woo-hoo. Luya screamed and fell directly. Frieza looked grimly at the falling lure, then he stretched out his index finger and reflected the laser cannon towards Luya. Bang, 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 bang. More than a dozen red laser cannons bombed like this, and the smoke was everywhere. At this time, a figure fell out of the smoke. It was Luya. He was injured now, but it was not fatal. In the end, Luya landed on a rock. Frieza looked at Luya and said with a smile, "Ho ho ho ho. Is this all your power? It doesn't seem to be my opponent." Luya wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and then the corner of his mouth lifted up. "You guy is indeed strong enough, but how could I lose to you?" "Oh, do you have any other moves? Just use them," Frieza said jokingly, with his hands outstretched and his tail twitched. Luya gritted his teeth, and then burst into gas instantly, raising his breath to the highest level. Now, he is still in the state of the king of the world. But it was a little exhausting. Under normal circumstances, he can last for 10 minutes, but now, fighting Frieza with chi also needs to consume chi, so he will not have much time. Fight fast. Thinking of this, Luya directly raised his chi to the highest. At the same time, he folded his hands around his waist. Turtle, pie, chi. Seeing this familiar scene, Gohan and the others all woke up with a start. Keelan wanted to shout out, but Gohan quickly covered his mouth. "Don't disturb them," Gohan said in a serious tone. Krillin nodded quickly, and after Gohan let go of him, he said a little excitedly, "This guy, do you want to use Wukong to deal with Sharu to deal with Frieza?" Gohan looked at Luya in the field and prayed secretly, "I hope it can be successful." At this time, Luya was still gathering chi frantically. He raised his chi to the highest level, and then, the energy gathered in his hands kept skyrocketing and was compressed by him again. Frieza also noticed something was wrong. He looked at Luya with some doubts. "Hey. You are not crazy, are you? Such a gathering of forces, activating Qigong, will solve the whole earth." Luya smiled and said, "What? Are you afraid?" Frieza's face was stunned, and then he smiled. "Boy, not to mention whether your attack can damage me, you can't hit me with your speed alone. So, you should be careful and keep your breath. So you can fight to the death." Luya smiled slightly and didn't speak. And the next moment, his breath suddenly skyrocketed. Frieza looked at this scene with a bad feeling in his heart, but he didn't believe that the other party could hit him. Or is it that the other party is also stalling for time? Thinking of this, Frieza's eyes showed a killing intent, and then, he opened his palm to Luya, and red energy gathered on his palm. "Go to hell." The next moment, Frieza burst out with a burst of air and shot straight towards Luya. Luya's eyes widened, and the next moment, he shouted angrily. "Gong!" Swish! In the next moment, Luya's figure suddenly disappeared, and only the afterimage of the air bomb hit him. At this time, Luya has come to the back of Frieza. What? Frieza was startled and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. What? Luya pushed forward, and in an instant, a huge Qigong wave directly drowned Frieza. Ah! Frieza screamed and then drowned in the torrent of Qigong waves. Chapter 12 _ Surprise Rebirth. The duo is back. With Luya's record of turtle Qigong, everything that Qigong has gone through has vanished into nothing. Even the sea was split open by his Qigong. Countless seawater evaporates. Looking around, there is no end in sight. This is the turtle-style Qigong that brings together all the Qi of Luya, and the combat power of more than 11 trillion. Who can think of how powerful that Qi is? It can be said that if Luya hit this move in mid-air just now, it is possible to directly destroy the entire Earth. Ha, 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 ha. Luya still gestured, panting heavily, and after the big move broke out, he felt sore all over. Shish. ________. The originally violent Qi gradually weakened at this time, and the red Qi had disappeared at this time, leaving only the golden Qi. Luya's current physical strength can no longer maintain the power of the 7 times the King of the World, so he quickly took back the King of the World, and he can't maintain the Super 2 form now, and he has become an ordinary Super Saiyan. After playing the Turtle School Qigong, the breath that he was holding has been released, so he can't transform into a Super 2 form for the time being. That guy should be gone. The Z warriors watched this scene with palpitations. They had also seen Wukong use this move against Sharu back then, and even Sharu at the time couldn't react. And was crippled, and now Luya's attack should be more than a little stronger. This Frieza, shouldn't he be able to stop it? Thinking of this, everyone is a little excited. It seems that without Goku and the others coming back, they will be able to deal with the strong enemy Frieza. Something's wrong. Gohan and Piccolo didn't show a relaxed look like the others, but revealed a dignified look, because Lure at this time also did not have any slack. Could it be that guy, he can be like Uncle Piccolo? Gohan thought of something and suddenly gritted his teeth. Cold sweat broke down on Piccolo's face. On the other hand, Luya was a little dignified, because he knew that although his attack was powerful just now, it did not kill Frieza. The other party is still alive. Open black lens bracket drop. It was detected that Frieza's Qi was still there, so the host did not complete the task. Please make persistent efforts. Close black lens bracket. Luya. Surely not dead. At this time, everyone suddenly noticed something and looked in one direction at the same time. Luya looked at the sea water. Some cold sweats broke out. At the same time, a figure slowly emerged from the sea, first the head, then the body, and finally when the whole person appeared on the water, the air suddenly quieted down. Frieza. This man is Frieza. He is not dead yet. Luya looked at Frieza, then smiled slightly. You are really lucky. Frieza's face was hideous, and his current appearance was indeed a bit miserable. He had already left the form of Golden Frieza, one arm was missing, and only half of his waist was left, and even his tail was 70% broken. Awful. Although the Golden Frieza just now noticed Luya's appearance, he was still a step behind. Lure, who uses teleportation, is very difficult to capture, so even if he evolves into Golden Frieza, it will be a little hard to resist. But, damn Saiyan, Frieza roared with an ugly face, and then, he suddenly burst out with a terrifying aura. Immediately afterwards, his broken body began to wriggle, as if something was about to break out of the flesh. Piccolo suddenly widened his eyes and reminded him, hurry up and do it now. He's going to grow back. Luya was stunned for a moment, and then he was a little stunned. Nima, Frieza will do Big's trick. Is this a joke? Why has he never seen it? When he came back to his senses, Luya hurriedly fired a few gas bombs. In an instant, the gas bombs landed on Frieza and bombed in an instant. But in the next moment, a purple air suddenly swept out, instantly dispelling the smoke. Then, Frieza's figure is revealed. Why? Luya's face changed greatly, because at this time Frieza had recovered his body. Frieza moved his muscles and bones, expressionless. He looked at Luya, and said, you can force me to perform regeneration, you are the first. Regeneration, Luya said solemnly. Frieza laughed, and then said, yes. Rebirth. This trick is my secret skill, and I won't use it unless I have to. I am a cosmic creature, and I have been reorganized with cosmic matter, so, as long as there is material, and there is still no one blow to kill me, then I can be reborn. Luya frowned, and then said, when you were defeated by Sun Wukong and Trunks, why didn't you use it? Hearing this, Frieza seemed to have been stabbed in a sore spot, and then said coldly, in the battle with Sun Wukong, I didn't have a chance at all, and I can't, because if I use rebirth, I won't transform into a Super Saiyan. Sun Wukong's opponent. Maybe he will be completely killed by the opponent. As for the Super Saiyan boy behind me, I didn't have a chance at all. The other party didn't give me any time to breathe, so I was killed. Speaking of this, Frieza suddenly burst into anger. It's all because of you Saiyans. A bunch of stinky monkeys. He's obviously my Frieza's servant, but he has made me so embarrassed over and over again. Frieza looked at Shang Luya, and suddenly showed a radiant, okay, the grumbling is over, you should have recovered a little strength, then let's start. Luya's face was solemn. He was indeed delaying time just now, in order to adjust his state, but now he has not reached the peak at all, at least he can't transform into a Super 2. Although the other party said that the combat power has been greatly reduced after the rebirth, they can still hang everyone here. Next, it's a tough fight. Frieza laughed. How is it? Do you want to surrender? If so, then I can consider it. Luya grinned. Surrender. It's impossible to surrender. Luya, I'm dead. Killed by you. I will never compromise with you. Frieza's face sank. If that's the case, then you should die. As he said that, he suddenly raised his body, and then, he stretched his fingers up, and a group of red chi began to gather, and then, the chi became bigger and bigger, forming a red ball of light. Ho ha ho, Saiyan, now I've had enough fun, let you disappear with this earth. Frieza said with a grim smile. The next moment, he suddenly threw the ball of light that had expanded to 20 meters in diameter. Luya narrowed his eyes slightly. If he couldn't catch it, then the earth would be gone. What to do? Just when Luya was about to use the ape transformation, suddenly, two figures suddenly flashed in front of him. Seeing them, Luya was stunned, and then his heart was relieved. Guys, it's finally back. Goku. Vegeta. Seeing the two people who came suddenly, all the little friends were surprised. Chapter 13 Vegeta's Pride Battle. Goku and Vegeta had just returned from training with the God of Destruction, and they didn't expect to encounter this kind of thing just after teleporting back to Earth. For the first time, both of them sensed the danger and looked at the red ball of light that was pressing towards them. The next moment, the faces of the two of them sank, and then they held out with one hand at the same time, and in an instant, they directly blocked Frieza's air bomb. Ha! Ha! In the next second, the two burst into gas at the same time, and in an instant, two terrifying gas swept out directly. At the same time, the two exerted their strength at the same time, and immediately pushed the huge ball of light back. How is that possible? Frieza's face changed greatly, and then he quickly disappeared. Boom! The huge ball of light exploded directly in the distant clouds, and the entire sky was instantly dyed with a layer of bright red. Goku and Vegeta restrained their breath. The former was a little puzzled. What happened? Why did Frieza appear on Earth? At this time, the Z warriors all came to Wukong and others. Wukong looked at the gathering of Gohan and others, but he was a little happy. Gohan, Keelan. You are all here, what happened? Gohan immediately recounted what had happened. Frieza is back. After hearing their words, Goku and Vegeta were both surprised. That guy Frieza is really stubborn. He even dares to destroy the earth. Wukong said angrily. Immediately thinking of something, he suddenly looked at Luya and said with a smile, Luya, right. I heard that you are also a Saiyan. Please stop Frieza from coming. We can't contact the earth, so we need to find the earth's gas, but it took a lot of time. Quote. Nodded slightly. Just come back. Frieza is more difficult to deal with than I thought. Since you are back, I will leave it to you. Wukong nodded seriously. Don't worry, Frieza, I'll take it down. Hey, Kakarot, leave it to me for Frieza. This guy, I've never played against him since I broke through Super Saiyan. So I'll go first. Vegeta. It was suddenly unpleasant. Wukong glanced at Vegeta, then smiled and said, okay, then you can go first. But do you have a familiar feeling, such a scene is similar to that in the past? Hearing this, Vegeta was stunned for a moment, then smiled coldly. You said that, it's a little bit. Back then, I wasn't a Super Saiyan. When Frieza invaded the Earth, it was the future Trunks who solved it. Speaking of this, Vegeta suddenly looked at Luya. You said you came from another universe. Luya nodded slightly. Yes. Vegeta frowned, then said solemnly, it's strange, there are other universes besides our universe. Moreover, you can transform into a Super Saiyan. What kind of universe do you exist in? Universe. Luya raised his eyebrows, and then said, a very awesome universe. Brilliant. What is this? Vegeta asked in confusion. Everyone. Luya held back his smile and said, it means very powerful. Hearing this, Vegeta nodded with a vague understanding. How awesome is it? Sternly, very, very awesome. Nima. Vegeta's face froze, and then his fists clenched. His violent temper made him want to go up and call the other party to death. Stop chatting, let's get rid of Frieza first. This guy is more than a little stronger than before. At this moment, Wukong suddenly said, he didn't listen carefully to the conversation between the two, but paid attention to Frieza, with a frenzied fighting intent in his eyes. Humph. Let's say it first, Frieza, let me, Vegeta, take care of it. You all step aside, Vegeta said proudly. Hearing this, Wukong struggled for a while, but finally agreed. Okay, then you can go. Suddenly said, that Frieza can turn into a golden Frieza, you have to be careful. Vegeta dismissed it. Humph. Is he the only one who has improved? My uncle has also improved, and it's easy to deal with him. Luya shook his head with a headache. As a coercion king, and a failed coercion king, he really worried about the other party. But he didn't say anything, and followed Wukong and others to retreat into the distance. Now that Luya's chi is consumed a lot, it's better for him to avoid his edge for the time being, and he hasn't been able to turn into Super Blue yet, so he can't win against Frieza. Mr. Keelan, can you give me a fairy bean? Luya suddenly looked at Keelan. Krillin nodded quickly. Of course. If it weren't for you, we would all be killed by Frieza. Saying that, he took out a fairy bean and handed it to Luya. Luya took it and swallowed it directly. In less than 2 seconds, his state directly reached its peak. Huh. At this moment, Wukong suddenly looked at Luya. His expression was a little dignified. This guy's anger seems to be no weaker than his own. Wukong thought so, and made a decision in his heart. On the other side, Vegeta moved slowly, and then came to Frieza. Frieza was also recovering his strength after dodging the attack just now. He just had a chance to breathe because these guys were hilarious. Seeing Vegeta coming over at this moment, he suddenly smiled and said, ho 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 ho. Who am I? It turns out to be my loyal servant, Vegeta. Vegeta's face turned cold. Humph. Don't make a mistake, I, Vegeta, have never regarded you as my boss. Frieza didn't care, he just thought that the other party was arrogant, so he smiled and said, Vegeta, you came just in time, join hands with me, help me kill Sun Wukong, and that Saiyan, I can let you do it. My right and left hand. How about being the #1 general under my command? Vegeta was silent for a second, then showed an evil smile. It seems that the conditions are not bad. Frieza thought he had settled on Vegeta, and immediately said, that's right, so, come to me. Vegeta actually walked towards Frieza. That guy, what is he doing? Bulma got angry when she saw that her husband wanted to go against the water. Goku looked at Vegeta with the same smile on his face. Don't worry, Vegeta, it's no longer the original Vegeta. Luya didn't speak, his eyes slowly closed to check his own situation. Fortunately, his current strength not only has no sequelae, but has also improved a lot. In the battle with Frieza, Luya was full of firepower, and the Super Saiyan talent was always activated by him, so he became stronger while fighting Frieza. Now his combat power is 6.7 billion, 200 million more than before. And he also used the system to see the combat power of Goku and Vegeta. Before they turned into Super Saiyans, their combat power reached an amazing level. Goku's combat power is 6.9 billion. And Vegeta is close to 6.8 billion. The two have almost the same combat power, but with their strength, this difference is completely negligible. Chapter 14_Vegeta starts. Super Blue debut. When Vegeta walked up to Frieza, stand still. Frieza looked at him with a smile, a little proud. Bang! In the next instant, Frieza was hit hard, and his entire body bowed like a shrimp. Ouch! Frieza's eyes were splitting, and his face was contorted by the tremendous pain. I saw that Vegeta had appeared in front of him, and his fist just hit Frieza's stomach. Vegeta leaned closer to Frieza's ear, and then said jokingly, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in your conditions at all. Frieza's eyes were red and she had an expression of disbelief. Vegeta's face turned cold, and she screamed, sending Frieza flying. The latter directly smashed through several hills, and finally smashed into a cliff. Vegeta snorted coldly, that's it. Frieza's figure was embedded on the cliff, and he looked at Vegeta with gritted teeth. He really didn't expect it just now. Vegeta, this kid, dared to do something to him. Ka ka ka. The figure floated out, and Frieza looked at Vegeta with an ugly face, and then snorted. I didn't expect that my former subordinates have become so powerful today. Vegeta looked at him coldly and said, there are many things you haven't seen, things you didn't expect. For example, ha! The words fell, Vegeta shouted, and the next moment, he directly transformed into a Super Saiyan. This, Frieza's pupils shrank in disbelief. Vegeta sneered, it's not over yet. Boom. Shish. CCC. Vegeta exploded again and turned directly into Super Saiyan 2. I didn't expect Frieza. Vegeta, can also transform into a Super Saiyan. Vegeta pointed at himself with a thumbs up and sneered. Frieza gritted his teeth, then suddenly closed his eyes, then calmed down, opened his eyes to look at Vegeta, and said with a smile, I admit, I was a little surprised, but, even so, so what? Frieza, but the first genius in the universe, even if you transform into a Super Saiyan, you will not be my opponent. As soon as he finished speaking, Frieza clenched his fists with both hands, the veins on his forehead burst out, and he started to explode. Boom. As Frieza drank violently, the purple aura around him directly transformed into golden radiance. The body is also transformed a little bit, and it has become a golden Frieza. Boom. In an instant, a terrifying power emanated from him, shaking the sky. Vegeta's face froze, and then cold sweat broke out on her face, but... Damn, this guy. The other side, the first time Wukong saw this form, he also showed an unbelievable look. How did this guy cultivate? How can he achieve this level? This is Golden Frieza. His power is very terrifying. Even Luya can't beat him. If Luya didn't use teleportation to strengthen the strongest turtle Qigong, I'm afraid it would be over. Kaylin said solemnly. Wukong is a bit complicated. Teleportation, turtle Qigong, Luya, you are very strong. Luya said modestly, General. Uncle Vegeta, will he be okay? Gohan asked worriedly. Wukong smiled and then said, Don't worry, Frieza has indeed become stronger. But we are not behind in practice. Don't worry, Vegeta will not lose. Everyone was a little puzzled. No matter how hard they practiced, could it be that these two people did not have any adventures? Luya smiled knowingly. He knew why the other party was so confident, because both Goku and Vegeta could be further improved to reach the Super Saiyan Blue in the domain of gods. Shish. The golden aura enveloped Frieza, and he retransformed into a golden Frieza at the moment when his aura reached its peak. His strength is stronger than Luya, but the opponent's instant movement and the strongest turtle Qigong are really hard to resist, so he will be hurt by the opponent. I didn't expect your power to reach this level. It's really terrifying. At this moment, even as arrogant as Vegeta, it was a little shocking. You must know that it has been so many years since Frieza was killed last time. Now, the other party is in hell, and the speed of improvement is even more terrifying than them. You must know that they were instructed by Whis himself. He originally thought that Frieza's level guy could no longer keep up with them, but now, the power displayed by the other party has brought him a very big threat. Ho ha ho ho, do you think that only you can make progress? This is the new form I have cultivated in hell for so many years. I call it Golden Frieza. Frieza laughed and said proudly. Vegeta's face was a little gloomy, and he snorted coldly, humph. So what? This uncle also has reservations. Frieza was stunned for a moment, then said in surprise, oh. Is that so? Then you don't have to keep it, come on. Use your power. Vegeta snorted coldly, and then the anger in his body began to explode. Then, he roared up to the sky. In an instant, a terrifying golden chi rushed out of his body, and the next moment, the yellow chi was also there. This moment has transformed. Vegeta's chi is rising. Soon, Piccolo's eyes widened, and cold sweat poured down his face. It's amazing. Krillin and others were stunned. They were all stunned. What happened to Vegeta? Wukong smiled mysteriously, but did not speak. Luya narrowed his eyes slightly. He was using the system to estimate Vegeta's strength. The opponent's chi was constantly improving, and the combat power had exceeded 10 trillion. And it's still improving. Ah! Vegeta is still roaring. It seems that only in this way can he fully explode his power. Frieza couldn't hold back anymore. He gritted his teeth and looked at Vegeta in disbelief. How? How is that possible? I don't believe it. Ha! A high-pitched angry shout fell, and the Kai around Vegeta's body had turned blue, and it could no longer be called Kai, but squirmed like a liquid. Breath of God. With a blue spiky head, Vegeta's aura had undergone earth-shaking changes at this time. He looked at Frieza with a sneer, and then said, how is it? This is the strength of this uncle. Frieza's face was ugly, and the opponent's anger had already surpassed his current physical strength. If I had known that I would practice for another half a year, I would improve myself and come to trouble these Saiyans, and I also consumed a lot of chi in the battle with Luya just now. Vegeta didn't mean to be too long-winded with the opponent, and the battle cells in the body became active directly. Suddenly, Vegeta rushed directly to Frieza. Damn! Frieza shouted angrily and went up to meet him. Bump! The two fists collided directly, and in an instant, a sound swept away. Chapter 15_Wheel Battle, Goku appears. Boom! The two of them banged directly, and then they were knocked back at the same time, but in the next second, the two of them faced the waves at the same time. Boom! Another explosion, and now Frieza has flashed behind Vegeta. An elbow hit directly at it. Vegeta's face remained unchanged, his head lowered, and he avoided Frieza's attack. At the same time, he suddenly pushed his elbow back, but he was also blocked by Frieza. Call out. Vegeta's figure flashed, and the next moment, he appeared above Frieza's head and fired a gas bomb with both hands. Call out. Frieza was extremely fast, disappeared in the blink of an eye, and dodged the attack. At the same time, he appeared beside Vegeta and kicked it away. In a few seconds, the movements of the two people can't be captured. Kaylin and others all watched this scene solemnly, not only surprised by the strength of the two sides, but also secretly broke into a cold sweat. Boom! Shish! Vegeta blasted straight into the air, looked at Frieza, and snorted coldly. Frieza's face turned hideous, and then he crossed his hands, and every fingertip was flashing red. Eat me! Frieza snorted coldly, and then he suddenly pointed in Vegeta's direction, and in an instant, 10 red rays of light shot out directly. And the appearance of the light was just right, completely blocking Vegeta's action route. Cold sweat slid down Vegeta's face, and then he gritted his teeth and pushed out a few palms. Several air bombs bombed around him, and they exploded in the next instant. At the same time, Vegeta exploded, and the blue beam of light rushed out of the smoke, jumping into the air, and then Vegeta rushed to Frieza. But Frieza showed a weird smile at this moment, just waiting for you. He suddenly opened his palm towards Vegeta's figure. Coax. A gas bomb of a condensed terrifying force flew out instantly. Vegeta's face changed, and there was no time to dodge, so she could only block with a cross arm. Boom. The next moment, Vegeta's figure fell directly. Frieza did not intend to let him go, but rushed towards Vegeta's figure. In an instant, Frieza kicked Vegeta's back with a flying kick, directly causing the opponent's figure to speed up and fly down, fall into the sea and set off a wave. However, with an angry shout, Vegeta rushed out of the sea again. He looked at Frieza, and then gritted his teeth to gather his energy. Final flash. Shish. The terrifying chi burst out again, and a powerful chi suddenly gathered in Vegeta's palm. Frieza's face changed, and then he showed a dignified look. The next moment, he said fiercely, "Then come on." Swish. Immediately afterwards, Frieza also began to condense into a terrifying air, and the golden air companions gathered in his palm, exuding a terrifying aura. Frieza, die for me! Vegeta roared angrily and made a direct attack. The huge Qigong wave swooped down directly. Frieza sneered. Ho 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 ho. Bloom. Beautiful fireworks. Boom. In an instant, with the force of his palm, a terrifying golden wave of light shot out directly. Boom boom boom. The two energies collided directly, stalemate with each other. But the surrounding things can't bear the power of the two of them, and they are directly destroyed. Wukong and the others all looked at this scene with solemn expressions. Wukong sighed a little. Frieza, is it really strong enough? On the side, Luya watched the battle in the field, and already had the idea of taking a lure to kill the opponent. As long as he solved Frieza, his mission would be completed. These two people are so strong, Gohan said with some sigh. As a Saiyan, he has a feeling of enthusiasm. If he persisted in his practice all these years, I am afraid he can reach this level. Thinking of this, Gohan's face suddenly became firm, and it seemed that he couldn't be lazy anymore. Can't let these two people mess up, or the earth will be destroyed by them. Wukong suddenly said solemnly. The next moment, he burst into gas, shouted angrily, and a terrifying force erupted directly from him. In a moment, Goku also transformed into Super Blue. Wukong. Dad. Krillin and the others all looked at Wukong in surprise. It turns out that Goku can transform too. Wukong nodded, and then his figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared between the two of them facing the waves. Wukong instantly raised his chi to the top, and the next moment, he directly launched a big move. Turtle, Pi, Chi, Gong. Ha. Boom. Wukong directly used the turtle Qigong to push the attack wave of the two people out of the earth. The field is back to normal. Frieza and Vegeta are a little exhausted. But it can be seen that Frieza's condition is worse. Kakarot, what are you doing? Seeing his own battle being interfered with, Vegeta was suddenly unhappy and glared at Goku. Wukong said helplessly, if you continue to fight like this, the earth will be gone. Vegeta snorted coldly, turned her head arrogantly, and said, who cares about it? Wukong was speechless. Anyway, you are also a family member, so why don't you have a sense of belonging? Hearing this, Vegeta's face suddenly turned green. Shut up for me. Kakarot, give you 3 seconds. Go away now. My battle with Frieza is not over yet. Wukong hesitated for a moment, then said sternly, it's time for me to appear. What did you say? Vegeta's face suddenly turned bad. Wukong laughed, and then said, you're consuming a lot of chi now, and you can't beat this guy, let me do it. I've found this guy's weakness. What? Vegeta was instantly furious. You said I couldn't beat him. What a joke. Oh, weakness. You said I have a weakness. Ho 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 ho. Monkey King, you are a bit ridiculous. Frieza, how could I have a weakness? It's your physical strength. At this moment, Luya suddenly said. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Luya smiled slightly, secretly happy in his heart. Nima, it's time for him to pretend. So you saw it too. What a great guy. Wukong looked at Luya with some admiration. Luya said modestly, low-key and low-key. Hey, stop talking nonsense here. The weakness you mentioned doesn't exist at all. Frieza said with a grim expression. Wukong looked at him and immediately smiled. If that's the case, then you can fight me. Frieza clenched his fists and stared at Goku. Kakarot, do you want to go back on your words? Did you want me to come? Vegeta suddenly said solemnly. Wukong scratched his head. When did I say that? You've been fighting for so long anyway, so take a break and let me defeat this guy, okay? What a shit. Absolutely not. Vegeta roared. Goku shrugged, then he looked at Frieza and asked with a smile, Hey, Frieza. Would you like to have a fight with me? Frieza. Vegeta. Chapter 16 _ The Last Struggle. Frieza's death. What are you talking about? Frieza looked at Sun Wukong with a livid face. At this moment, he seemed to feel like a clown, played by these two guys. Wukong smiled slightly, then suddenly burst into anger. The blue aura of God enveloped him directly. Come on. Your target is me. Frieza gritted his teeth, and then he burst into the air and rushed to Wukong in an instant. Wukong's eyes froze, and he immediately started. Bump, bump, bump. The two started a high-speed confrontation directly, and the fierce collision swayed directly in the space. Vegeta's face was a little ugly, but he soon sank, dissipated super blue, and fell to the ground. In the field, although Frieza had a huge consumption just now, he still did not lose the battle against Wukong, but this situation was quickly reversed, because Frieza's face was a little ugly, and he was kicking in the fight, looking like a hypocrite. Look. Wukong looked at Frieza, and then asked with some doubts, Frieza, in your form, you should have just successfully transformed, right? Frieza was stunned, then gritted his teeth and looked at Wukong. What do you mean? Wukong smiled and said, you should be familiar with this form and come to Earth. In this case, maybe even me and Vegeta are not your opponents. Frieza snorted coldly. Even now, you are not my opponent. Wukong smiled and said, you must be very tired. This form consumes too much of your physical strength, so you are now more and more flawed. If you continue like this, you are not my opponent at all. Stop talking nonsense. Frieza's face was hideous, and the next moment he burst into anger and rushed straight to Wukong. Swish. Snapped. Frieza punched very quickly, but Goku grabbed his fist directly. What? Frieza's face suddenly became extremely ugly. Goku grabbed Frieza's fist and grinned, too slow. Snapped. The next moment, Goku turned around, dragged Frieza's figure with his hand and threw it violently. Just throw it out. Frieza wasn't a vegetarian either, so he forcibly stopped. Frieza. Wukong let out a long howl, rushing directly over, slamming his fists with both hands. Frieza was directly hit by a crit, and his body fell directly. Boom. A cliff was directly stepped on, and Frieza was bounced out by the elastic force. The next moment, Goku's figure flashed in front of him. Goku opened his palm to Frieza, and a gas bomb sent him away again. Boom. After breaking through the cliff behind him, Frieza finally crashed into the distant rock, sending a cloud of dust flying. Goku looked in Frieza's direction with a grim expression on his face. Win. Gohan and the others all showed joyful smiles. Hey, if it wasn't for this prince consuming the opponent, what would happen to Kakarot? Vegeta said proudly. Luya didn't speak at this time. He tried his best to suppress his sense of existence, so that he could make a surprise attack after a while. Defeat Frieza. This task, it is better for him to complete it alone. Huh. Wukong's expression suddenly changed, and he immediately became serious. Next moment. Ah, Sun Wukong. The roar shook, and in the next second, Frieza rushed into the sky wrapped in golden aura. Wukong's eyes narrowed, and the next moment he suddenly shook his body, the dark blue aura of God distorted, and immediately rushed into the air, looking at Frieza. Frieza stared at Wukong, but he is getting more and more empty now, and his panting is getting more and more violent. Frieza, you can no longer maintain this form, you should admit defeat. Wukong looked at Frieza and said lightly. Humph. Admit defeat. Frieza, how could I possibly lose? Are you kidding me? Frieza roared with a grim face. He suddenly burst into gas, and then charged directly towards Wukong. Go to hell. Frieza's eyes were bloodshot, and he threw a fist full of hatred. Wukong snorted coldly, and the next moment he lowered his head and directly dodged the opponent's punch, and then hit the punch. Hit the opponent's stomach. Puff. Vomit. Frieza's face twisted, and his body trembled violently with the tremendous pain. Sun Wukong's punch almost pierced his body. Swish. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed on Frieza's body, then dissipated the golden form of Frieza and returned to his final form. But, damn, Frieza turned around with difficulty and wanted to hit Goku, but the latter disappeared in a blink of an eye, and appeared behind him in the next instant, kicking Frieza to the ground. Frieza's entire body slammed into the ground, the whole earth trembled directly, and the solid ground shattered. Goku landed slowly and looked at Frieza with a blank expression. Frieza stood up with difficulty, his face filled with disbelief, and he muttered to himself, This is impossible. How could I possibly lose? Bang! An angry Frieza slammed two fists into the ground, and a small pothole appeared. Wukong said coldly, Frieza, you have no hope. Now, I will send you back to hell. Frieza's face turned hideous, and then he showed a hint of madness. Ha ha ha, ha ha. If that's the case, let's die together. What? Wukong suddenly showed a touch of horror, and his heart became intensely uneasy. Suddenly, Frieza suddenly raised his fist, ready to punch the ground. When Wukong saw this, it was too late to stop. Ho ha ho ho, go away. Frieza's face grimaced, and a punch fell. Swish. Just as he was about to hit the ground, a figure suddenly appeared beside him and grabbed his wrist directly. What? Frieza's face changed greatly, and he looked at the person who stopped him in disbelief. Luya smiled slightly. I'm waiting for you. After that, Luya grabbed the opponent and threw it directly, and in an instant Frieza's figure was thrown far away by him. Boom. In the next second, Luya directly exploded, and when he reached the Super 2, he performed the King of the World at the same time. Start gathering now. Turtle, Pi, Chi, Gong. Without hesitation, Luya burst out with the most powerful force and slammed into Frieza. Hey, I must be back. Frieza is screaming, and then directly cultivated to the blood ash in the turtle. The sudden scene made everyone stunned. They didn't expect that Frieza planned to die with them in the end, and Luya seemed to have predicted it in advance, stopped the other party, and killed the other party. Even Goku and Vegeta were in a cold sweat. Especially when they saw Luya's form at this time, both of them were dignified. Especially Wukong, he didn't expect that the opponent could still use the King of Worlds. This is a trick he hadn't even thought of. This guy is amazing. P.S. Readers and friends, see it here. If you think it looks good, please give it a rating. You can also send a message for love, and try to give you more updates. Chapter 17_New Mission. Luya vs Goku. Frieza's death made everyone in the audience extremely complicated. It was unbelievable that a generation of evil emperors was killed just like that. After Luya got rid of Frieza, he dissipated his form and returned to his original form. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for completing the task and defeating Frieza. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket drop. Distribute rewards and reward 500 million combat power points. Close black lens bracket. Reward the host to get Frieza cells. Be able to survive in outer space. Close black lens bracket. Reward super match 3 transformation skills. Close black lens bracket. Reward 100 fairy beans. Close black lens bracket. Reward the power upgrade of the King of the World. The current power level is 10 times. Close black lens bracket. Hearing a series of reminders in his mind, Luya burst into joy. Nima, this reward is quite generous. The combat power has been directly increased by 500 million points. And there are Super 3 skills. That is, he can transform into Super Sai 3 like Sun Wukong. You know, in the entire Dragon Ball series, only Goku and Gotenks who merged with Goten and Trunks can transform, and now, there is one more him. Ah, that, Luya. At this moment, Wukong's call pulled back Luya's thoughts. Luya looked at Wukong and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Wukong said with a serious face, "How did you know my tricks?" The other friends also rushed over, and they all looked at Luya when they heard the words. Vegeta hugged her chest and looked at Luya, her eyes narrowed slightly. Luya glanced at the crowd, and then said, "I learned from Gohan." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Wukong looked at Gohan and asked, "Gohan, can you also use my teleportation and Kaiwang fist?" Gohan shook his head. "Dad, I can't. I only taught Luya the tricks I know, but I don't know Dad's tricks. How can I teach him?" Hearing this, Wukong nodded understandingly, and then looked at Luya. Luya smiled slightly and said, "I created the teleportation by myself. And the Jawang fist is what I comprehended." What? Everyone's expressions suddenly changed, and they looked at Luya in disbelief. At the same time, the Rome King who was far away in heaven also shed a cold sweat. In the field, Wukong looked at Luya strangely and said, "You created it. Do you know where the teleportation is?" "A Detro planet. I went there back then and saw that the residents there were very kind, so I taught them by the way. Is there any problem?" Luya said as a matter of course. In fact, he snickered inwardly. Nima, who doesn't know the history of Dragon Ball Puyoran's life, as a transmigrator, he is very careful. When Wukong heard the words, his face suddenly became serious, because he learned teleportation from the planet Adetra back then. This guy seems to have some truth in saying this. "Hey, how is that possible? You are so young, how could you be able to do such tricks? And at that time, you were still a child," Vegeta said through gritted teeth. Luya looked at him and smiled. "Actually, I'm 520 years old." What? Everyone was stunned. Luya smiled and said, "Actually, I practiced in our place for 500 years. During these 500 years, I pressed myself under a mountain to exercise. I can only transform into a Super Saiyan now. And my hometown is called Wujishan." Everyone. Luya then continued. "Later, after I turned into a Super Saiyan, I started to look for opponents in the universe, and after fighting the invincibles of the universe, I came to this universe. Later, I traveled the universe and found there are Saiyans in the universe, and then I found Earth." Listening to Luya's rhetoric like bragging, everyone is a little dubious. Is there really someone in this world who can live for hundreds of years? To be honest, apart from God, I have never seen a human being able to live for so long. Wukong scratched his head. "I have never heard that Saiyans can live so long," Vegeta said indifferently. "You haven't seen it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Isn't it?" Luya smiled and said. "Nima." He suddenly discovered that bullshit also requires skill, and without any knowledge, he really dare not brag. But is bragging illegal? Don't break the law. Just when everyone was puzzled, Wukong suddenly said, "Forget it. No matter how many, although it is hard to believe, it is not non-existent, haha." Immediately, Wukong looked at Luya, and suddenly smiled confidently. "Mr. Luya, can you give me a try?" Hearing this, Luya was taken aback for a moment, and then he said with some doubts, "Are you sure?" Wukong clenched his fists and said with a smile, "Of course. You are so powerful, I want to compete with you too." Hearing this, everyone was a little helpless, but they were all used to Wukong's character, so they were not surprised. On the contrary, Vegeta gritted his teeth and was a little angry, but he snorted coldly and did not speak anymore. Open black lens bracket drop. Trigger system tasks. Close black lens bracket. Task content. Fight against Sun Wukong for 1,000 rounds without defeat. Close black lens bracket. Luya. Nima, why did you have a mission? And still such a difficult task? Undoubtedly, with his current strength, unless he uses the World King Fist when he is in the Super 3, he can't beat Sun Wukong at all. How is it, Mr. Luya? Wukong suddenly asked urgently, with anticipation in his eyes. Luya hesitated for a moment, then nodded, "Okay." "Great." Wukong was immediately excited, undisguisedly happy. "Let's fight farther away, otherwise it will spread here," Luya suggested. "Okay." Wukong looked at Luya confidently, the two smiled at each other, and then used teleportation to disappear in place. In place, everyone looked at each other in dismay, a little complicated. "Hey, Kakarot." Vegeta's face was a little ugly. "Nima, Kakarot was actually tempted by someone else, isn't that hitting him in the face of Prince Vegeta? Kakarot's opponent can only be him. Only he is qualified to hit Kakarot." Thinking of this, Vegeta's heart was blocked, and he looked at Bulma. "Hey. Bulma, go back." Bulma looked at the crowd, then nodded quickly, "Okay." Vegeta left with Bulma, and Gak quickly followed. Everyone also looked at each other in dismay. This crisis was finally resolved, and they didn't need to stay. "Those two guys won't mess around, right?" Klein asked worriedly. "Who knows? Gohan, let's go," Piccolo said lightly, and then greeted Gohan. "Okay, Uncle Piccolo." Gohan hurriedly agreed, and then he looked at Krillin and the others. "Everyone, go back. Let's go first, bye. Be careful on the road." Kaylin and the others waved goodbye. After a while, everyone left. I don't know how long it took, a rainbow light fell on the field. "Hey, Weiss, where are they?" A cold voice came out. "Oh yo, what's the matter? He was still there just now, did he leave?" A surprised voice sounded. "Humph, it's all your fault. Take the wrong way. Waste my time. This time is enough for me to eat many desserts." The cold voice suddenly became a little annoyed. "Oh, Lord Beerus, calm down, I'll take you to Miss Bulma's house." Another voice laughed. Immediately, a rainbow light rose into the sky and disappeared at the end of the sky in the blink of an eye. P.S. Let me see who hasn't slept and squatted and waited for the update. Take a bubble, and ask for a reward by the way. Chapter 18_suppress. Goodbye Super Blue. In a desert, Luya and Wukong looked at each other across the air, and the two were suspended in midair quietly. No one moved at all, letting the wind howl. Woo-hoo-hoo. A gust of wind blew, and the two of them moved their eyelids, and the next moment, the two suddenly disappeared in place. Bump. In the air, the two appeared at the same time, punching each other with fists. A gust of air spreads out. The two stared at each other, revealing a Radian. The next moment, he shouted angrily and burst out at the same time. Immediately start the high-speed brawl. Bump, bump, bump. Ha, ha, ha. The more they fought, the more courageous they became, and their chi began to increase wildly. Boom. Whoa. With a collision, the two quickly retreated. At the same time, the two exploded at the same time and transformed into Super Saiyans. Wukong looked at Luya and smiled slightly. "I didn't expect that your strength is so powerful. No wonder you can block Frieza." Luya smiled slightly. "You are also very powerful. If it weren't for the sudden increase of 500 million combat power, he might not be Wukong's opponent now. Even now, he has to be more vigilant. The opponent's combat experience is too rich. Compared with this half-assed person, he is really much stronger. Wukong suddenly said, I heard that you can transform into the second stage of Super Saiyan. Luya nodded. Yes. Wukong smiled confidently and said, come on then. Ha! Wukong drank violently and transformed into Super Saiyan 2. Power skyrockets. Luya was also a little excited, and then he also roared, and the breath on his body reached its peak in an instant. Boom! See. The whole body exudes thunder and lightning like a small snake. Luya has golden hair on his head, clenching his fists and smiling. How is it? This is the second stage of my Super Saiyan. Wukong looked at Luya in surprise and sighed, it really seems like. Immediately, he showed a smile, your strength is not weaker than mine, in this way, you can have fun. Wait, Luya suddenly interrupted, you should still be able to transform, right? It's the third stage of Super Saiyan. Wukong was stunned for a moment, then nodded, it is indeed possible. Luya hooked his lips slightly, then use it. Wukong was stunned for a moment, then hesitantly said, are you sure? If I transform again, then that kind of power is very strong. Luya waved his hand, it's all right, hurry up and transform. Wukong's face condensed. Okay. Look at it. Ha! The next moment, Wukong began to explode, and the huge breath rose directly into the sky. Suddenly, the sky changed color, countless white clouds speeded up and drifted past, and the stars moved, and the whole world seemed to be filled with Wukong's energy. Luya looked at Wukong, and then said, System. Use the Super Sci-3 transformation skills. Open black lens bracket drop. Use the Super Saiyan transformation skill. The host can transform into the third stage of Super Saiyan. Close black lens bracket. Luya's face suddenly turned hideous, and at the next moment, he roared violently, ah! Boom! The golden air column rises directly into the sky. The whole cloud layer is stirred up. In the field, two terrifying auras skyrocketed directly, and the chi of the two of them also increased rapidly at this time. At the same time, on a remote island, a young man with black long hair suddenly noticed something. He turned to look into the distance, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then he was silent for a long time. Sun Wukong. Have they already met these two chi? At the same time, Beerus, the god of destruction who was eating dessert at Bulma's house, suddenly looked into the distance and said, Lord Beerus, there seems to be some mystery about this lure. Weiss said intoxicated, holding a scoop of ice cream in his mouth. Humph, so what? If he dares to have any bad thoughts about this universe, just destroy him directly. Beerus said indifferently, not caring. Bulma came over with a plate of dessert at this time, and when she heard this, she suddenly said, it's not necessary. Luya is a good person. If it weren't for him, the two of you wouldn't be able to eat these things. Huh, Beerus froze for a moment, then curled his lips. Well, in that case, let him live. Bulma smiled. Then thank you Sir Beerus. Beerus said proudly, it's for the sake of these desserts. Weiss smiled, and then he thought of something, looked into the distance, and there was something meaningful in his eyes. At the same time, in the desert, Wukong and Luya snorted almost at the same time, and their breath reached a climax. Then, their hair grew directly to their buttocks, their faces were cold, their original eyebrows were gone, and the two of them were all over their bodies. Wrapped in a terrifying golden scent. Wukong looked at Luya, then smiled slightly, sure enough, you still have the power to hide yourself. Luya smiled and said, there are indeed some trump cards. He can't be said to be able to transform into Super Saiyan 3 after defeating Frieza, otherwise he will surprise Goku again. Then let's get started. Goku grinned. The power Luya showed made him very excited, because the other party's chi was strong enough. Not much weaker than himself. This made him look forward to it. Luya nodded slightly, then put on a fighting posture, and Wukong did the same. Swish. The next moment, the two disappeared at the same time. Bump, 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 bump. The two fought directly in the sky, Their bodies swayed constantly, and the speed of punching was only afterimage, and they could not even see their movements at all. Between the collisions, rolling thunder and lightning swept through the field, the airwaves were terrifying, and the collision sound was thunderous. What? Wukong suddenly punched Luya in the face, and then Luya screamed and shot straight back. Wukong's body suddenly disappeared, and the next moment he appeared behind Luya, clenching his fists and wanting to smash it down again. Luya reacted, pushed backhand, and shot a gas bomb directly, hitting Goku. Wukong screamed and was knocked back all the way. Luya seized the opportunity and directly played the prince's tactics, and countless air bombs blasted at Wukong. Ah! Wukong fell directly into passive. Open black lens bracket drop. The host fought against Sun Wukong for 552 rounds. Please keep up the good work. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket drop. Host. Close black lens bracket. Luya worked harder and released gas bombs frantically. But at this moment, a terrifying chi emanated from Wukong. Ha! Wukong exploded his chi and directly transformed into a super blue state, and the huge chi directly shook Luya back. Don't talk about martial arts. Luya said speechlessly. Nima, it was a fair fight, but you turned super blue. Bully me not super blue is it? Wukong looked at Luya, then smiled slightly. You are really powerful, you can force me to a Super Saiyan blue state. Luya hesitated for a moment, then said, how did you become super blue? Can you teach me some skills? Wukong. Chapter 19_Super 3 plus Kai Wong Fist vs Super Blue. The face of Luya's bizarre problem. Wukong did not take it to heart, but said, I have practiced until now, but it has taken a lot of effort. Super Saiyan Blue, it is not so easy to become. Luya nodded understandingly. Understood. Wukong smiled and said, are you still fighting? My current power is higher than yours. Luya can't refuse. Nima, the system has given a mission, and now only a few hundred rounds have been played, and only half of it is completed. Of course, although you turned into Super Saiyan Blue, I didn't show my full strength. Luya smiled confidently. Really? That's right, you still have the king boxing. Wukong seemed to remember something, and then he laughed too. Luya nodded. That's right. Boom. Immediately afterwards, Luya burst into gas, and burst again in the form of Super Saiyan 3. King Fist. Suddenly, Luya shouted angrily, and at the next moment, a terrifying force burst out from his whole body. Shish. The red aura enveloped him again, extremely terrifying. Wukong's eyes narrowed slightly, and his eyes showed seriousness and solemnity, but more than excitement, amazing. He even used the King of the World to 7 times. He can also use Jia Wangquan, but in this state, he doesn't dare to use it, and he has never practiced it, so he doesn't dare to rashly add Jia Wangquan to Super Blue. Luya smiled slightly. 7 times. No, I'm more than that. As soon as the words fell, suddenly, Luya burst into anger again, and with a howl, Luya's anger skyrocketed again. Tenfold World King Fist. Boom. Shish. The tenfold World King Fist fell, and his power skyrocketed again. Wukong's face was dignified at this time, because the opponent's strength was no longer inferior to him. What a powerful force. It seems that I'm going to practice Jawang Fist too. Wukong smiled slightly, but he said again, although your strength has skyrocketed, the physical load brought by Jawang Fist is very large. Yes, you're almost like Frieza. Luya smiled strangely. Really? Then let's take a look. After the words fell, Luya suddenly rushed directly to Wukong, and the speed was so fast that even Wukong was startled. Bump. As soon as he reacted, Wukong flew out with a scream as if he had been hit hard. Cough. So fast. Wukong stopped, then wiped off the scratches on the corner of his mouth, showing an excited smile. Luya looked at Wukong. His anger exploded again and again. His face was serious and cold. Come again. Wukong laughed, and immediately rushed out. Luya snorted coldly. did not show weakness, but also rushed out. Bump, 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 bump. The two start with a high-speed mobile collision. Punching and punching you. I punched each other. Bump. Luya suddenly burst into the air and cast the King of World Fist, and the speed was raised again by a grade, and he instantly clenched his fists and struck a heavy blow, directly smashing Wukong into the desert. Boom. A huge deep pit appeared. Wukong's figure fell with the appearance of the giant pit, and then, he gritted his teeth and rose into the sky, and his speed increased in vain. Luya's heart moved, and suddenly a gas bomb was dropped. Call out. Suddenly, Wukong disappeared in vain, and then he appeared next to Luya and kicked him across his stomach. Ah! Luya's stomach acid spurted out by the opponent's kick. Immediately, Wukong didn't give Luya a chance, and punched him directly into the desert. Turtle, Pai, Chi, Gong. In an instant, Wukong directly gathered his chi and hit the turtle-style qigong with a super powerful blow. Boom. In an instant, the desert with a radius of several kilometers was directly blown up. A huge deep pit appeared in the field. The dust fell to the ground. Wukong looked at the giant pit below, smiled slightly, and said, I know you won't be knocked down so easily. In the next second, a sensation sounded, and the entire desert seemed to tremble at this moment. Ha! An angry shout fell, and in the next instant, a powerful air column shot straight into the sky, and the whole sky was stirred up again. The source of the beam of light, Luya's body slowly rose, his clothes were a little broken, and there were many scratches on his body, but his anger did not decrease much. Seeing this scene, Wukong's eyes suddenly became solemn, and he underestimated Luya's strength. This guy is really powerful. Obviously the opponent does not have the realm of God, but he can fight to this extent. Even Goku has to admire each other. Luya has not yet gotten rid of the power of the King of Kings, but he is now a little out of breath, just like Frieza before. I have to say that he is using the King of Kings now. As long as the number of uses increases, the intensity will increase. If you use it for too long, he will be affected. Luya looked at Wukong and immediately said, I can fight again. Wukong nodded. Then I'm going. The words just fell. The next moment, Wukong gasped in vain, and then, wearing the breath of the blue god, he rushed directly to Luya. Luya gritted his teeth and rushed out. In fact, to complete the task is very simple. As long as he swallows a fairy bean, then he will definitely be able to last 1,000 rounds. But let alone Monkey King, even Luya himself can't accept this. He is a Saiyan, inherited the arrogance of Saiyans, so arrogant self-esteem will not allow him to do this. Bump bump. The two started high-speed confrontation again, but as the battle progressed, Luya was gradually at a disadvantage. However, Luya also felt that although it was a contest between the two sides, Sun Wukong was also correcting his shortcomings in the battle, and his control of the power of Super 3 was not as good as Wukong, and the other party was also helping him to become stronger. Opened the strongest Saiyan talent, Luya quickly mastered his own strength, and is still exercising his combat experience. Bump. In a gap, Luya slammed Sun Wukong's right face with a punch, and the opponent shot dozens of meters directly. Open black lens bracket drop. The battle with Sun Wukong has reached 999 rounds, and there is still one last round left. The host will make persistent efforts. Close black lens bracket. Luya's heart moved, and the next moment, he suddenly looked at Wukong and said, one move will determine the outcome. Wukong was stunned for a moment, and then he smiled confidently, okay. Luya's fierce burst of air brought the World King's boxing to the top. Wukong is also not to be outdone, he is also suddenly out of breath, the blue breath of God directly expands several times. Turtle, Pai, Chi, Gong. The tricks of the two are surprisingly consistent. Two completely different turtle school Qigongs are condensed, and they are all concentrating their power on this move. After a few seconds. Ha! Ha! The two of them looked at each other, and almost simultaneously hit the turtle school Qigong. In an instant, the two Qigong waves directly collided and merged, and the entire space trembled. P.S. Here we come. Chapter 20 _ shock. Other universes. After the big explosion, the field was a mess, dust and sand flew up, and the vision was blurred. The confrontation between Wukong and Luya made the entire desert almost become a desert. A giant pit with no end appeared in the field, and the pit also breathes lightning bolts. Shish. In the air, Wukong and Luya maintained the posture of playing turtle Qigong. Their bodies were wrapped in Qi, and they were both gasping for breath. Wukong withdrew his hand, then dissipated the super blue state, and slowly calmed himself. Seeing this, Luya also dissipated his strength, maintaining the tenfold World King boxing plus Chaosai San's physical strength form. He was a virtual batch at the moment. You are really strong. Fortunately, I followed Weiss to practice there, otherwise, I might not be your opponent. Wukong smiled and looked at Luya. Luya also smiled and said, if you fight again, I will definitely lose. Wukong didn't deny it, but said, your kaiju fist needs to work harder, so that your body can withstand the load it brings. Luya nodded. Understood. Wukong thought for a while, then said, what are your plans next? Luya raised her eyebrows, and then she wanted to say something. Suddenly, the system sounded. Open black lens bracket drop. Congratulations to the host for completing the task of fighting Sun Wukong for 1,000 rounds. Close black lens bracket. The reward World King Fist has been upgraded by 2 times, and the current level is 12 times. Close black lens bracket. Reward 500 million combat power points. Close black lens bracket. Reward Sun Wukong's exclusive combat skill, Dragon Fist Burst. Close black lens bracket. Reward 100 fairy beans. Close black lens bracket. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Luya frowned a little. Originally, he thought he could get the super blue skill, but he didn't expect it. System, why didn't you reward me with super blue skills? System, host, the rewards are distributed randomly. Sorry I can't open a small stove. Luya. Wukong said with some doubts when he saw Luya in a trance. Luya reacted, and then smiled. Well, my next goal is to cultivate well and strive to reach the Super Saiyan Blue as soon as possible. Hearing this, Wukong smiled. Really? Then you have to work hard. To achieve Super Saiyan Blue, it is not ordinary. I will take you to see Wes when I have time. Oh yes, Wei. S is an angel, and Beerus, the god of destruction. He is the god of destruction. Luya nodded. I see, thank you. Wukong laughed. After the fight with you, I've become a lot stronger. At the same time, I also know that the World King Fist can still be used like this. Next, I have to practice hard, and then practice the World King Fist. Luya nodded. I wish you success. He was a little weird in his heart, because even without him, according to the plot, Wukong in the back also showed the King of the World when he fought against Hit in the 6th universe, so that means, Wukong will also practice by himself later, and now, did he remind the other party in advance? Thinking of this, Luya is a bit complicated. Well, that's it, I'm leaving. If you want to practice, you can go to Gohan's house, and then you can find me. I'm looking forward to seeing you play against me again. Wukong laughed. Luya nodded slightly. Definitely. Wukong pointed to his forehead, then waved his hand. Goodbye. Swish. After speaking, he disappeared in place. The spot, Luya was slightly taken aback, then smiled. Interesting. Falling to the ground, Luya glanced at his palm, his face a little complicated. He only came to Dragon Ball World for a few days, but he didn't expect to be so powerful. It made him feel a little unreal. My combat power is now close to 8 billion, which is already more powerful than Sun Wukong and the others, but the next enemy is even more terrifying than them, so even if I reach this level, I'm afraid I can't beat them. Luya pondered slightly and said to himself. He knew that after Frieza's stock, he would be someone from the 6th universe, as well as Zamasu from the future world. fake Vegeta, and the parasites that Gak brought. None of these powerhouses is simple. It seems that we still need to practice cultivation. Luya sighed. His current combat power looks very awesome, but when it comes to the back, it's not that good, so he still has to speed up his training. Although he can control his own power now, he is still not skilled enough, and his power is improving too fast. Even if he has the strongest talent, it cannot be digested and absorbed. So, Luya disappeared directly in place, and he wanted to find a place to practice by himself. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. On the other hand, time passed quietly. On the other side, over Bulma's capsule. Swish. Wukong suddenly appeared in the arena. He looked at Beerus, who was eating dessert not far away, and suddenly he was overjoyed. Lord Beerus. I didn't expect you to come. I felt your breath, so I came. Beerus was stunned for a moment, then asked, I am a god, how did you feel my breath? Wukong smiled slightly and said, I have the realm of gods in the super blue state. So it is very normal to find you. Beerus didn't care too much about anything, then said, then why are you here this time? Wukong smiled and said, I'm here to ask Lord Weiss to teach me how to practice. Weiss swallowed a small cherry ball with pleasure, looked at Wukong chewing it, and said, aren't you able to transform into super blue now? You have already broken through a stage, isn't it enough? Wukong shook his head. It's not enough. This time, I met two super powerful opponents. Oh, is that Frieza? Weiss was stunned, and then said. Wukong nodded. Yes, he counts as one. And one more. Vegeta came over at this time. He was wearing a vest, and there was sweat dripping on his face, as if he had just come out of practice. Wukong looked at him and smiled. Luya. Kakarot, are you sure you're not joking with me? Vegeta's face stiffened, and then she said angrily. Wukong shook his head. I'm not kidding, Luya, he's really strong. To be honest, even if I use Super Saiyan Blue to deal with him, it's a little difficult. Vegeta gritted her teeth, as if she couldn't believe it. Oh, Luya, is that the Saiyan Bulma said? It's interesting. I heard that he also stopped Frieza from destroying the Earth. It seems interesting, Beerus said lightly. Wukong nodded. He said he was sent from another universe. Other universes. At this moment, Beerus and Whis were stunned, and then became a little weird. Wukong nodded, and immediately thought of something. He said with some doubts, Lord Beerus, do you know the existence of other universes? P.S. The current combat power has been changed a bit. Readers and friends who read it in advance can go back and read it again, otherwise it will be a bit messy. Ask for a reward. Ask for a rating. Thank you, thank you.